Undead are those who cannot die even when killed. They are immortal beings who have escaped the cycle of life and death. For them, dominating an entire dimension is not difficult. They believe that conquering what is called Earth is merely a matter of time. Everything seems to go smoothly according to the plans of the undead. However, deep in the midst of the battle, a calm young man steps forward. The undead are astonished and cannot believe their eyes as they exclaim in disbelief that he is just a human and should not be alive. Kang Hyun, engulfed in fierce flames, replies that it is because he is stronger than them. Then, he easily wields his sword and dispatches each of the undead. 2 years earlier, Kang Hyun was just an unemployed man living off his younger sister. Kang, a Hyun furious, looks at her useless brother, wishing she could kick him out immediately. She suppresses her anger and lets Kang Hyun know she is allowing him to stay because he says he is job hunting, but he just wastes time drinking and gaming. Pointing to the door, Kang, a Hyun, loudly tells him to go back to their parents' house if he continues this way. Kang Hyun hesitates, wanting to explain that at his age he can't keep depending on their parents. His sister interrupts and asks if depending on his younger sister is any better. Before Kang Hyun turns to leave, Kang, a Hyun, reminds him that it's New Year's Day tomorrow and you should look for a part-time job or do something productive. Kang Hyun whispers, all right, I'll think about it tomorrow. My head is spinning now." Returning to his room and closing the door tightly, Kang Hyun can still hear his sister scolding outside. He wonders why his life is so miserable and what kind of life he will lead in the future. The only thing he has done since coming to Seoul is a short internship at a large corporation. Kang Hyun thinks to himself that he should also find a suitable job. Lying in bed and looking at the bright screen, Kang Hyun realizes he forgot to turn off the game before logging out. He laments how wonderful real life would be if it were like a video game. If that were the case, he could have a good job as a warrior, mage, or swordsman. Drifting off to sleep, Kang Hyun sees a status window before his eyes displaying a message about a detected common connection from the Haken dimension. The Earth's defense system begins to activate. Startled awake, Kang Hyun finds himself in a different place, puzzled by the floating text before his eyes. The status window appears again, displaying the message. Time until connection to the Haken dimension is completed. 4 years, 364 days, 23 hours, and 59 minutes. Next, the window welcomes Kang Hyun to the tutorial, which consists of 8 stages. Additionally, he learns that death here does not affect reality. Once the tutorial is completed, he will be awakened and rewarded. Kang Hyun, holding his head, thinks to himself that this must be just a dream, the kind only a serious gamer like him could have. He silently apologizes to his parents and promises his sister that he will look for a job as soon as he wakes up. Kang Hyun's emotions change as quickly as the wind. He smiles joyfully, not caring that this is just a dream. He believes it is a sign from God telling him to play all out one last time. The window once again updates, announcing the start of Stage 1, hoping that Kang Hyun's bravery is sufficient to save the Earth. To complete the challenge, you must cross a bridge and failure results in death. Kang Hyun looks around but sees no bridge. Yet, in a moment, the scene before him begins to change. Fire surrounds Kang Hyun, and the only way out is across a fragile bridge. He steps back in fear, with lava below the flames. Alongside Kang Hyun, several others appear and he does not know who they are. He doubts this bizarre dream. At that moment, he hears his sister's voice next to him calling out to him. Confused, he looks towards his sister, wondering how she could appear in his dream. This is indeed too absurd. Kang Hyun clings to a rock face, avoiding the steaming lava beneath, and asks her brother if this is really a dream. She then mentions something about saving the Earth, which she doesn't understand at all. Even in the dream, Kang Hyun continues to excel at being useless. He tells his sister not to act as if this is her dream because it is his. Kang Hyun, annoyed, snaps back, asking if that really matters now. She starts analyzing if it were really a dream, then the lava could not possibly be this hot. Moreover, their conversation flows too naturally for it to be just a dream. Kang Hyun asks her brother if he doesn't find anything suspicious. Kang Hyun, tired of his sister's nagging, steps forward on his own, eager to complete the challenge. Kang Hyun looks at her brother with a fearful expression and asks if he isn't afraid of falling down below. He laughs loudly and asks his sister if she's out of her mind, claiming it's just a dream and if he dies, he will surely wake up. As Kang Hyun finishes his sentence, a loud noise comes from the rock above them, trying to appear calm in front of his sister. Kang Hyun's voice trembles as he says the scream sounds a bit real, but he isn't scared. Kang Hyun dismisses his brother's cowardly demeanor. She slowly crawls across the bridge, reminding her brother to be careful, suggesting that crawling might be safer. The two of them continue to crawl across the bridge, with Kang Hyun filled with doubts. Kang Hyun insists it's just an unreal dream. She looks at her brother again, questioning if such a dream could truly exist, and asserts that something must be happening that they can't imagine. Kang Hyun continues, suggesting that if they die here, it's likely they won't be able to return to the real world. Kang Hyun cries out, calling his sister a wretch, asking why she keeps bringing it up. Now his whole body is so frightened that he can't move. Kang Ahayan thinks he must be the most unreliable brother on earth. Seeing her brother wanting to lie down on the bridge, too afraid to go on, she asks if he plans to just lie there. Kang Hyun, deceiving himself, still insists it's just a dream. But the system doesn't give the siblings time to continue arguing. The difficulty suddenly increases and large cracks start appearing on the bridge leading down to the lava below. Kang Hyun yells at his sister to run. Eventually, they complete the challenge set by the system. The next morning, waking up, Kang Hyun thinks he had a bizarre dream. However, to his surprise, many people on social media are talking about a dream last night similar to the one he and his sister had. Kang Hyun, panicked, runs into her brother's room talking about the strange dream from last night. She loudly states that they walked on lava and nearly died, and it wasn't just a dream. It's important that both of them had the same dream, including a status window. It isn't until they sit down at the breakfast table and see what's happening on social media that they can confirm last night wasn't just a dream. It appears that people all over the world had the same dream. Kang Hyun holds his phone in his hand and forces a smile, guessing that dying in the game doesn't affect reality. Many people fell into the lava below, yet no one was hurt. However, it felt incredibly real, and falling would surely hurt like death. Kang Hyun looks at her brother and asks if it's okay for them to be eating normally while chaos ensues outside. Kang Hyun puts down his chopsticks and listens to the noise outside. They couldn't do much other than eat properly. He stands up, walks to the window, and pulls aside the curtain to look at the chaotic scene outside, asking his sister if she wants to jump into that crowd. Both understand that they cannot go out to work today. Going outside would only result in getting hurt. Kang Hyun turns back inside and asks his sister if she remembers anything about the connection to the Haken dimension. His sister counters by asking if he had not carefully read the status, right? They had been provided information that at least they could check the remaining time when temporarily awakened. Whatever it is, they still have 5 years until it ends. Kang Hyun looks at the chaotic street outside but believes that people will soon calm down, suggesting that it's best they stay inside for now. Kang Hyun silently thinks it's rare for her brother to speak so sensibly. Just as he said, by evening, the chaos of the morning had subsided and the streets had become quiet. By night, most people had returned to their normal lives. Thanks to this, South Korea stabilized again in just one day. Thus, the first day ended. Kang Hyun once again falls asleep, quickly checking his status board. Looking at the indices on the screen, Kang Hyun is unsure if they are at an acceptable level, since he has no one to compare and evaluate them with. He looks at the magic index line, wondering if he could use magic. His eyes then catch a more interesting term, resurrection skill. Kang Hyun laughs loudly, thinking this seems like an overwhelming cheat ability. Great, his life is no longer that of a surplus person. The status board continues to ask Kang Hyun if he wants to start stage 2. Kang Hyun replies of course, whether his stats are high or low, he can still level them up. At this point, he remains excited about possessing a resurrection skill without thinking about what might happen next. In stage 2, Kang Hyun needs to defeat enemies and prove his skills. He thought it would be like a battle in a game system. Kang Hyun managed to take down a goblin with a club, but the feeling of defeating a living creature made his whole body shiver. He curses under his breath, feeling like he's about to vomit. Kang Hyun knew he could win because it was just a goblin. If it hadn't attacked by surprise, he might have been the one lying there. Just as he finishes his thought, another goblin soldier appears in front of him, this one much larger. He fears, thinking aren't goblins supposed to be low-level monsters for beginners? Yet this one is twice the size of the last, wielding a sword over a meter long. The club Kang Hyun had chosen now seems useless. With a body weakened from long-term unemployment and lack of exercise, Kang Hyun can't withstand the opponent's attack. Worse yet, after reducing Kang Hyun to half his health, the goblin doesn't kill him but drags his body away. Kang Hyun curses, wondering when he will wake up from this nightmare. At this point, he just hopes someone will come and rescue him from this situation. Kang Hyun had never paid attention to how much blood a human body held until he confirmed it with his own blood. The fear of death slowly overwhelms Kang Hyun's mind. He must endure it until he stops breathing completely. Kang Hyun wakes up after being tortured to death by 4 goblins. Even though he has escaped the system, Kang Hyun is still trembling with fear. Kang Hyun, concerned, asks if he died from losing too much blood. Kang Hyun, needing a glass of water, recounts the horrific events to his sister. First, they capture him to pull out each fingernail and toenail and smash them. Unsatisfied, they even pulled out his teeth. His sister covers her ears, horrified, not wanting to hear anymore. After a while, she asks if he needs to go to the hospital. She heard that the number of patients in the psychiatric ward had doubled in the past 2 days. Perhaps others have experienced similar ordeals. Kang Hyun doesn't think he needs a hospital, but the bigger truth is he has no money. He hears some good news from his sister. Once someone dies, the tutorial ends, but those who die in the first stage will not dream of the second stage anymore. In stage 2, Kang Hyun is again faced with the challenge of overcoming enemies in his dreams. He thought if he could endure, he might escape the dream, but it seems not feasible. Eventually, Kang Hyun has to do what he dreads. Going to pick weapons for the battle, Kang Hyun stops to consider his options. Last time he chose a club because it seemed strong and easy to use, but it proved ineffective. This time, he decides to take a bow and a spear. Full of confidence, he goes into battle, but once again, he fails to hit the enemy with the arrows. Realizing the bow is ineffective, Kang Hyun switches to the spear, easily stabbing a goblin. However, with the second goblin attacking, he finds he can't pull the spear out of the body of the goblin lying on the ground. Once again, he dies with just one hit. Kang Hyun tells himself that he must try harder next time. Tutorial Stage 2, Round 3 opens. Today he chooses his sword and shield. Using a familiar weapon would be better, but he doesn't choose the spear as he spent all day learning the sword. However, in the battle of Round 3, Kang Hyun is immediately overwhelmed and killed by a group of goblins. Furious, he wakes from the dream, vowing vengeance against them all. Kang Hyun re-enters the tutorial for Stage 2, Round 4, swinging his sword randomly to increase his stats. He resolves to swing his sword for 8 hours to level up. After gaining 2 stat increases, Kang Hyun decides to take revenge on the goblins. But exhausted from overtraining, he fails to kill even one goblin and dies within moments. Learning from previous attempts, Kang Hyun continuously trains for 10 hours. Now, defeating the 2 goblins in front of him becomes much easier. Yet he still feels that his physical strength and combat skills are inadequate against the remaining goblins. Tutorial Stage 2, Round 7 opens. Kang Hyun simply swings his sword repeatedly, thereby developing basic swordsmanship. The abilities of basic swordsmanship help adjust his stance and save energy when swinging the sword, making his attacks more effective. Kang Hyun joyously exclaims that he's done it. Today the goblins will die. In Stage 2 of the guide, there were a total of 5 goblins. 2 were at the beginning of the fortress and 3 were in the latter half of the forest. For Kang Hyun, equipped with his current strength, the first 2 goblins were fairly easy to defeat. He ambushed the first one with a crossbow and dispatched the second with a sword. The main challenge, however, was the 3rd goblin in the forest. He could use the same strategy to eliminate the next 2, but the obstacle remained the final one. During the fight, Kang Hyun couldn't believe he was able to see his attack coming. It felt as if his body reacted before his mind had time to process. He suddenly realized this was the effect of the basic swordsmanship. Yet, there was another problem, as Kang Hyun was exhausted and had lost much stamina dealing with the previous 4 goblins. In a moment of carelessness, he dropped his sword. Nonetheless, Kang Hyun managed to smile, realizing this goblin didn't want to kill him immediately, but rather torment him predictably. Seizing a moment of inattention from the goblin, Kang Hyun picked up a large rock from the ground and struck it. The goblin, in pain and confusion, didn't have time to react before receiving another blow, leading to its death. The system then congratulated Kang Hyun on completing Stage 2, rewarding him with 5 bonus points and a weapon. Looking up at the clear sky, he shouted in victory, proclaiming the power of the Supreme Being. Awakening energized on a fresh morning, having completed Stage 2, he decided to make breakfast to celebrate. His sister, astonished, opened the bedroom door asking what he was talking about. At that moment, both received a system notification that the guide for Earth had completed activating the dungeon. Only awakened individuals could access the dungeon. After its emergence, the world turned chaotic. Initially, the siblings decided to stay indoors to review and organize some information. Sitting in front of the computer, Kang Hyun told his sister that it seemed the guide hadn't completely ended. Recently, those who turned 18 also participated in completing the guide. Kang Hyun informed her brother that social media was in turmoil due to the dungeon's appearance. People criticized the hasty decision to label those who completed the guide as awakened and send them to the dungeon. Kang Hyun mused that there were a total of 8 stages in the guide. It appeared that while he was trying to finish Stage 2, others had already completed all stages. Kang Hyun glanced at his sister's screen and asked if she could see anything related to Stage 3. Kang Hyun replied that there was nothing at all, no information, not even much about Stage 2. Kang Hyun looked at his sister again and asked if he should fight again. Now stronger, he also wouldn't be defeated as easily as before. Kang Hyun confidently believed he would complete Stage 3 stylishly and accurately. In the evening the guide for Stage 3 began. Kang Hyun never imagined he would be jumped by a minor monster. Angrily, he cursed and vowed to kill it, calling it a damned creature. In Stage 3, players are required to improve their perseverance and patience in all situations. The completion condition was to defeat the leader Gurkha. A tip suggested that if Kang Hyun waited long enough, an opportunity would arise. The system equipped him with a camouflage suit which Kang Hyun found absolutely fantastic. He guessed this might be a mission involving infiltration or assassination. Speaking of the leader Gurkha, Kang Hyun had never heard of this monster before, so his first decision was to go and find it. Before embarking on the mission, he checked what he had gained from Stage 2. Kang Hyun's eyes lit up as he looked at his status window, laughing loudly, saying the status window should look like this. Among the new skills he acquired were shield and crossbow usage. As for additional stats, Kang Hyun decided to increase his strength and stamina as they were useful at the moment. He considered whether to add 2 agility points just in case. Finally, the best item he received was a sword, the most wonderful thing he had gotten from the system. After checking everything, Kang Hyun set off to find Gurkha. He hid in the bushes, thinking of Carlos Hathcock, a legendary Navy sniper who successfully assassinated a major general after crawling over a kilometer in 3 days. From today, Hathcock was the person Kang Hyun respected most, because he'd have crawled on the ground and hidden for over 10 hours just to reach the monster's outpost. Currently, there were 2 guards outside, and Kang Hyun wondered if he should just charge at them. Being hidden for over 10 hours on the ground, Kang Hyun's body was extremely uncomfortable. There were also bugs crawling all over him. Kang Hyun's patience was nearly broken when one of the guards headed towards him to relieve himself, coincidentally stepping on him. Losing his temper, Kang Hyun charged forward and beheaded his opponent. The commotion attracted many monsters. Unafraid of death, Kang Hyun laughed loudly as everything had become chaotic. He was ready to unleash the words he had long suppressed. He shouted for all to come at him. The outcome of his recklessness was death. Entering the second round, Kang Hyun was armed with more experience. From the first round, he had learned from his 10-hour crawl. Now he knew the timing of the Gurkha warriors' hunting trips, who only returned at sunset. This meant that only weaker forces remained in the camp. After eliminating the weaklings outside, Kang Hyun marched straight to the leader's room and yelled out to call the cursed leader Gurkha. Instantly, Kang Hyun was hit by an enemy's binding magic, rendering him immobile. He wondered to himself if the guide also included magic. There must be a way out. Kang Hyun tried activating Lion's Roar next to break the magic. Freeing himself from the spell, he laughed loudly, praising his opponent's plan but declaring it was time for his head to fall. The system congratulated Kang Hyun for completing Stage 3 and awarded him physical recovery. He had completed this stage in just 2 days. Considering it took him a week to surpass Stage 2, this was a remarkable improvement. With such growth, Kang Hyun concluded that he was a genius. Emboldened, he thought he could complete Stage 4 in mere minutes. He then imagined his joy after completing Stage 4, but suddenly realized he was just fantasizing as if it was a month ago. 25 days had passed since a special awakened force was deployed to conquer the dungeon. 40% of the dungeons found had been conquered. The awakened continued to join in the dungeon conquering activities, and in gratitude, the government was considering rewards. Back at Kang Hyun's house, Kang Hyun was cooking in the kitchen when she heard her brother continuously shouting. She went to his room to remind him that the neighbors might complain if he kept that up. Kang Hyun opened his door to let his sister know that he had just beaten them all. Kang Hyun returned to the kitchen, muttering that her brother was out of control. Turning back to look at her brother's face under the light, Kang Hyun gasped and asked what had happened in his dream. His face looked terrifying. At dinner, Kang Hyun's face still bore a fierce expression. His sister, sitting opposite him, asked why he had been like this since the morning. He replied that the guy was irritating him. In Stage 4 of the system, it resembled a group project requiring players to demonstrate leadership skills. Specifically, Stage 4 required proving the ability to lead others, with the main objective being to destroy the core of the dungeon. The task involved leading a team to demolish the dungeon's core. It was like a role-playing game where team members acted like NPCs, performing assigned roles. The team often argued about whether to advance or retreat due to insufficient supplies to recklessly continue the mission. Despite the objections of some, they pressed on. Initially, Kang Hyun led them very effectively. He boosted morale with Roar of Outrage and led the team with the superior healing power of intermediate body regeneration. This ability allowed him to regenerate and heal bodily injuries with magic. Kang Hyun listened intently as her brother recounted the tale. She wondered what could have caused him to lose a whole month. Kang Hyun angrily shouted that those bastards were supposed to take turns patrolling, but they planned to escape together instead. When he discovered them, they ambushed and killed him. This resulted in the same characters and similar scenarios being repeatedly played out in each part. Under those harsh conditions, Kang Hyun finally found a breakthrough with his super intellect. He simply needed to eliminate the traitors and continue. Back in the dungeon for Stage 4, the people argued again about whether to retreat or advance. But this last time, Kang Hyun directly used his sword to kill those who objected. His fierce face warned the rest that from now on they must obey him. Resistance would mean death, as would complaints. Seeing the people in front of him terrified, Kang Hyun told them to trust and follow him. He knew what to do. Only when they reached the dungeon's final destination did everyone look at each other in astonishment, exclaiming that Kang Hyun had actually done it. After destroying the dungeon's flaw, their mission was completed. Upon reviewing the benefits gained from Stage 4, Kang Hyun was extremely pleased. His stats increased exponentially. Not to mention, he also collected items dropped from the monsters. Among the items, Kang Hyun had yet to discover the function of the magical stone, but he decided to store it until needed. His most notable achievement, however, was becoming physically stronger in reality. Physical workouts seemed almost pointless now, and he considered joining a gym. Just then, he received an urgent message from the security department warning citizens to be vigilant about monsters emerging from the dungeon. Kang Hyun immediately recognized the danger his sister could be in. He needed something to use as a weapon. Grabbing a kitchen knife, Kang Hyun rushed out onto the street. Seeing the monsters causing havoc, he couldn't help but smile. It had been a long time since he last encountered them. After clearing the monsters from the streets, Kang Hyun arrived at his sister's company. He smashed the glass of the office and entered, smiling at his sister. However, he was unaware that he currently looked extremely terrifying. Everyone in the office was terrified and looked at Kang Hyun, asking who he was. An elderly man loudly stated he didn't know who Kang Hyun was but questioned how he had managed to destroy the barrier. What should they do now? Kang Hyun, with a foolish smile, apologized, saying it was his fault. He couldn't control his own strength. Furthermore, he reassured everyone that they no longer needed to worry. Kang Hyun stepped aside so everyone in the room could see down the hallway where all the monsters had been killed. The people were horrified. Did he kill the monsters himself? He pointed at the monsters behind him and asked if they saw the weapons used by the goblins. He encouraged everyone to pick one up. Kang Hyun motivated them, unsure how long they would be able to hold out. However, as long as they did not panic, they could defeat them. Kang Hyun picked up a sword and turned to leave. Kang Hyun stepped forward and asked where he was going. He replied that he had seen some goblins on the way here. They must be on the upper floor. When Kang Hyun returned, he was covered in numerous wounds. Kang Hyun, worried, proceeded to clean his wounds. He asked her if using so much water was okay. They didn't know how long the situation would last, so they needed to conserve. She told him to be quiet as his wounds needed to be cleaned. After treating his wounds, Kang Hyun sat down beside him and asked why he fought so much. Kang Hyun looked at his sister and replied that perhaps he hadn't learned to fight well. Moreover, his abilities were so strong that he could take most of the attacks. But now he found it difficult to use all his skills. Kang Hyun reminded her brother to be careful, as if he couldn't use his skills, he wouldn't be able to resurrect. Kang Hyun smiled and asked his sister if he was cool, right? She sighed, saying yes, until he gets beaten like a dog, right? But she thought that people were starting to see him differently. There were even some seniors who asked her to introduce them to her brother. Tired out, Kang Hyun fell asleep in his sister's office. Thus, he entered Stage 5 of the system, where the task was to enhance his wisdom to overcome any challenge. The condition to complete the task was to defeat a succubus pretending to be a human. Kang Hyun thought to himself, isn't a succubus a dream demon? A creature that appears in dreams and drains the life force of men, famously beautiful. Kang Hyun looked around and noted that all the women present were beautiful. At that moment, a girl approached and asked Kang Hyun what he thought about succubi. Kang Hyun looked into the girl's eyes and responded that he no longer knew. At the same moment, his battle ring indicated a state of resisting enchantment. He realized that the person everyone was looking for in this level was standing right in front of him. Hiding in the shadows, Kang Hyun chuckled to himself. Stage 1 was a ring of fire, Stage 2 was a battle with the goblins. Recalling that Stage 3 involved crawling through a monster fight and Stage 4 was a month-long group activity. He finally could enjoy some fun after scrambling around like a dog. Kang Hyun restrained his smile and started to control his expressions because the one who discovers the identity of the succubus becomes a target. This meant if she realized who he was, everything would end immediately. He knew that if she was a succubus, she would definitely be a powerful creature capable of impersonating humans and mastering magic. Kang Hyun decided to go to sleep first and deal with things the next morning. However, when he opened his eyes again, he saw the familiar ceiling of his sister's office. Kang Hyun's colleague, who was about to wake him, happily approached as the military had arrived to assist them. Kang Hyun, uninterested and silently angry, thought that perhaps the succubus had recognized him while he was sleeping and killed him. Kang Hyun returned to reality when the sound of gunfire below the building caught his attention. Indeed, down on the street, several military personnel were engaging the monsters with gunfire. The young man standing behind Kang Hyun cheered, believing the monsters couldn't withstand the gunfire. Kang Hyun softly stated that it wasn't over yet. He was alarmed by a sudden dangerous feeling. A minute later, as the military started to lose ground against the horde of monsters, the situation became critical when a giant goblin appeared, dodging all the bullets fired at it. It began to approach and attack the military personnel. Everyone in Kang Hyun's company building observed the situation, puzzled about what was happening. If the military was also defeated, what should they do? Kang Hyun remained silent but watched intently from above. Team 3, after being attacked, panicked. The commander shouted loudly, asking where the person who was supposed to signal was and demanded immediate support. Corporal Jang Jae-hoon believed that after the signal was sent, a capable person would be dispatched. In the end, the person who appeared was just an ordinary citizen, which merely drove them mad. Kang Hyun arrived just in time to save the life of the third team's commander from a goblin. He kindly asked the commander if he was alright, acknowledging that they must have had a hard time being just soldiers after all. Jang Jae-hoon, terrified by Kang Hyun's strength, raised his gun and called him a monster. Kang Hyun cursed under his breath, urging them to put away their guns, questioning whether he looked like a non-human. Jang Jae-hoon hesitated and asked if Kang Hyun was really a human. Really? Kang Hyun, losing patience, asked if the commander was so surprised that he had to ask twice. Jang Jae-hoon calmed down, considering that this might be a volunteer who seemed quite strong. He bowed his head in apology for his earlier loss of composure. Kang Hyun showed understanding towards everyone, acknowledging that it was understandable since they had just escaped death. Hearing a word of thanks from the other party, Kang Hyun refused to accept it as he was not there for heroics. He was there because if the military were destroyed, then those cursed monsters would head for Ah Hyun's company above. Kang Hyun climbed down from the military vehicle and approached the goblin. Before leaving, he reminded the commander not to shoot as he would die if hit. He also wanted to take something similar to pepper spray from them. Jang Jae-hoon, showing concern, reminded him to wear a mask before using it. But Kang Hyun had already left, not having time to explain to him. Meanwhile, he loudly reminded them not to fire. All the team members began wearing gas masks and stayed alert. On the other side, Kang Hyun used pepper spray in the face of the goblin, catching it off guard before attacking. He smiled, whether a hobgoblin or goblin. They all struggled and panicked. His first goal was to take its weapon. The group, including Jang Jae-hoon, watched in amazement, wondering if he was an awakened being. Suddenly, from behind, a voice asked what was happening. Another awakened being appeared, thinking he was the only one called to assist. Meanwhile, Kang Hyun was having trouble. He had anticipated difficulty, but didn't expect to be unable to harm it. If this continued, his endurance would decrease. Seeing the situation deteriorate, the awakened being stepped forward and slashed at the monster to assist Kang Hyun. However, he felt no impact, as if cutting stone with a knife. He whispered that regardless, it was just an F-level dungeon boss. Since it was abnormally strong, it must have another weakness. Kang Hyun stood aside, silently commending the awakened being for his apparent knowledge. He spoke up, not knowing who the other was, but asked if he had any ideas. The explorer replied that he had speed but lacked the power for a finishing blow. Thus, he would hold it down for Kang Hyun to strike at its weak point. Kang Hyun thought to himself that this young man was showing off, even in such a critical situation, but he knew how to protect himself. Kang Hyun, weapon in hand, wondered where the creature's weak spot might be. The joints, the skin that was surely thinner. Upon attacking, Kang Hyun felt a profound sense of guilt as he looked at the monster, feeling discomfort on the handle of his axe. A sudden question popped into Kang Hyun's head. Was the inus a critical point? He thought it might be the weakness that could cause instant death. The decision was made instantly, and his body was ready for the next step. Kang Hyun knocked the monster down and continued to attack it. The awakened onlooker stood dumbfounded, wondering where such a strong person had come from. He wasn't affiliated with any organization yet. After defeating the monster, Kang Hyun retrieved an item. Seeing the awakened approaching, Kang Hyun thought that typically items were to be shared, right? But this guy had intervened on his own, and it was Kang Hyun who had actually taken down the beast. Kang Hyun only had time to think about running. He headed in the opposite direction, shouting that he had urgent matters and had to leave first. The young man called out from behind, but Kang Hyun was already gone. Several hours after defeating the hobgoblin, as dusk fell, the situation became more stable. The Kang siblings walked through streets that looked like remnants from a film set. Only after nightfall were they able to return home. Seeing their house devastated, Kang Hyun sighed and asked if he had forgotten to lock up. It was stupid to think he had grown up. Kang Hyun disagreed and asked why his sister always liked to complain about his handsome face. As he picked up his phone to check the news, he saw countless comments all saying Kang Hyun looked like a villain. Annoyed, Kang Hyun climbed into bed and asked his sister to turn off the light quickly. Kang Hyun clicked her tongue, saying she would turn it off this time since he had had a tiring day. Before leaving the room, she warned him not to scream early the next morning. She too had a difficult day. Kang Hyun smiled and told his sister not to worry as this level was easy for him. Tomorrow they would drink beer and share stories. Kang Hyun had no words to describe the reckless confidence of his brother. She didn't expect much but wished him good luck. As he drifted off to sleep, Kang Hyun remembered the awakened being from earlier who was quite strong. He wondered how many levels that guy had passed. Kang Hyun discarded that thought, determined to face the challenge because he believed he would become stronger than anyone else. As he slowly fell asleep, he whispered that the succubus from yesterday was quite beautiful, even though she was a monster that could kill him. But Kang Hyun was quite excited to meet her again. Things in the dream did not go as Kang Hyun imagined. This time, the mission had changed to invading a goblin den and conquering the dungeon. A tip displayed on the status board helped Kang Hyun to complete the challenge more easily. It noted that the goblins in the den had poor vision but very good hearing due to evolution. Kang Hyun was not concerned. What made him angry at the moment was why the content of this guide level had changed. At the same time, in a building in the city, the ability user who had fought alongside Kang Hyun was being beaten mercilessly. The man beating him kept asking why there were people as strong as that. He sneered at the young man, questioning if there was any point in being stronger if he didn't know how to fight. He felt luckier as it seemed there were still many more interesting ability users out there. Kang Hyun enters Phase 5, Round 3. The condition for completing this challenge is to defeat the doppelgangers hiding among the crowd, who eat people every night. Kang Hyun thinks that the monster that eats people every night needs to be found and defeated, doesn't he? It is similar to finding the succubus in Round 1. More precisely, it resembles playing a game of Mafia. It's still about using wisdom to overcome. Kang Hyun keeps staring at the status board, forgetting that he is continuously talking. He thinks that from now on, anyone who moves is the culprit. Kang Hyun forgets that in a typical game of Mafia, the one who talks a lot usually dies first. Kang Hyun is still surprised after being killed by a teammate. Thinking back, he has never won a game of Mafia before and never thought about this. He never imagined he would repeat the same mistake for a month and a half. This morning, Kang Hyun is wearing new clothes and glasses, sitting and reading a book. He asks if his sister's morning is going well. He then confidently tells her that he was born extremely smart. Kang Hyun, after getting off work, still sees her brother's pseudo-intellectual demeanor. She inwardly groans about having to deal with this mess after work. Kang Hyun explains to his sister that he's trying to change both his external appearance and inner self. It has been 53 days, and he has died 53 times in Phase 5. Therefore, he needs to do something. They say it takes wisdom to overcome, but the content is different each time. Even as a member of Mensa, he cannot win. Kang Hyun scornfully suggests that a brain transplant would be quicker than waiting for him to become smart. Instead of wasting money on frivolous expenditures, he should invest in soundproofing his room as the girl downstairs just installed a loudspeaker. Kang Hyun enters the system again, this time appearing inside a dungeon. He wonders what terrible task they have prepared this time. This time, Kang Hyun's task is to kill the venom-spitting Tuareg spider. He doubts that completing the dungeon is all it takes. The condition is that succinct. After many attempts, Kang Hyun finally finds a solution that even Aristotle would be impressed by. But unexpectedly, it turns out to be a venom-spitting spider. Despite the pain from the venom in his arm, Kang Hyun does not back down. Finally, Kang Hyun chooses to forcefully break through. Weaknesses or clues do not matter as long as he can kill him. Instead of looking for a key, he decides to crush it and move on. As soon as the spider is killed, Kang Hyun receives congratulations from the system and gains strength from a giant. Kang Hyun laughs loudly, asserting that brains are only for those who are physically weak. At a school, Kwon Min-soo receives a playful offer to punch a friend, guessing it's for his birthday. Kwon Min-soo replies that he'll do it later, as he is exhausted from the orientation he just went through. His performance in Phase 1 was indeed terrible, but he still completed it. The issue is about what's coming up. From Phase 5 onwards, there are no useful tips at all. A girl behind him steps forward, laughing and saying that just completing Phase 4 puts him in the top 1%. Perhaps those who have passed are keeping the information tightly amongst themselves. Kwon Min-soo shares that there's new information. Last night, someone completed Phase 7 and challenged Phase 8. Both sit down to review the information provided by that person. The theme for Phase 4 is leadership, dominating every member with strength. The theme for Phase 5 is intelligence, with muscle being the highest form of intelligence, so one should enhance their strength. Phase 6 is about ruthlessly destroying enemies and allies. Phase 7 is about sincerity, only destroying enemies. The girl, after reviewing the information, stands up laughing and asks, "What is this? Is this a bait?" At this time, Kang Hyun is at home on his phone, reading and becoming extremely angry at the stupid insults on the internet. He shouts out loud, calling someone a scoundrel, having tried his best to share tips, yet still not believed. Kang Hyun asks her brother why he is shouting so loudly. Kang Hyun complains to his sister that despite personally revealing and enhancing strategies, people still do not believe him. His sister laughs loudly and walks away, commenting that this old brother likes to meddle in pointless matters. Kang Hyun chases after her, asking what she just said. He waits and sees. Once he completes Phase 8, he will become the third person in South Korea to graduate as a guide, equal to Han Saeun, the leader of the Dangun Society, or Dong-woo, the president of the Power Users Alliance. Kang Hyun bluntly replies, mocking the comparison. How can he compare geniuses who completed it on their first try with someone who took 4 months to finish? Kang Hyun, provoked, tells his sister to be quiet. He also completed Phases 6 and 7 in just 1 attempt. In summary, Kang Hyun receives the Stage 6 reward, a B-grade weapon called Bill Gain's Longsword. This sword accompanied the mercenary Bill Gain, who made a name for himself on the battlefield for 30 years. Initially, it was just a well-crafted long sword, but as it absorbed Bill Gain's blood, it became imbued with a dark aura. The Stage 7 reward is Ronald's armor. This armor, worn by Ronald, a nomadic knight of the Kingdom of the Lost throughout his life, has the ability to automatically restore its parts after they are destroyed and repaired multiple times. If Kang Hyun completes Stage 8, he can use it in reality. He remembers an item obtained from the Hobgoblin, which will be revealed after completing Stage 8. Kang Hyun does not expect to pass it on the first attempt, but as long as it takes no more than a week. Entering Stage 8, his status window asks what Kang Hyun's belief is. Immediately afterward, large cracks appear in the surrounding space. Kang Hyun panics as he falls into another world. He discovers that his body is being passed through by people in this world, meaning he is in an invisible state. This is the first time Kang Hyun sees the world within the guide system. Looking closer is not Earth because the people around do not have human-like faces. Kang Hyun suddenly catches the gaze of a young man staring at him. He wonders if the young man can see him. The panic in the young man's eyes indicates he is not looking at him, but at the monsters behind Kang Hyun. Among the crowd of monsters, there are some he has seen before and others he has never seen. The number of monsters here is on a completely different level compared to the dungeon Kang Hyun experienced 2 months ago. It's like a scene from an apocalypse. Kang Hyun remembers the system's announcement that there are 4 years left until a full connection to the Haken dimension. Kang Hyun wonders if Earth will also look like this. While distracted, Kang Hyun is taken to another dimension by a creature. A mysterious person asks Kang Hyun how he feels. He tries to see the person in front of him clearly but can't, and asks if the person is a god. The answer is no, he should simply think of him as a dimensional administrator. In this phase, Kang Hyun is given the freedom to communicate with the dimensional administrator, providing valuable time for both to inquire about each other's concerns. Kang Hyun first asks about what he had just seen and whether Earth will end up empty like that. The administrator responds that it depends on what Kang Hyun does from now on. Confused by this, Kang Hyun continues to question why, if the administrator is such a powerful being, he does not prevent these events himself. The administrator explains that, as previously mentioned, he is just an administrator, not a guardian deity, and his role is to maintain balance. The status window and guide he provides are the best he can do at the moment. Now it's the administrator's turn to ask questions. He is curious about the beliefs that have guided Kang Hyun and what he lives for. Kang Hyun finds the question challenging and wonders why he is being asked this. The administrator continues, saying that after observing humanity during this event, he has become curious. All creatures are interesting, but humans are particularly so. Kang Hyun, somewhat irritated, repeats that the administrator's curiosity seems pointless. He smiles wryly, guessing that the administrator hasn't observed enough yet. In his view, no one spends their entire life thinking about such trivialities. Instead, from birth, everyone struggles to become a little happier and tries to survive day by day. The administrator pauses to digest this information before continuing to probe. He asks if there is anything Kang Hyun needs to protect. Without hesitation, Kang Hyun answers that he must protect his annoying sister and parents. His family is his priority. The administrator then unexpectedly asks if Kang Hyun has ever wanted to be a hero. Kang Hyun, annoyed, dismisses the question as nonsensical. After several deaths, he has come to understand his place, and the glamorous but exhausting job of a hero is not for him. The administrator notes that while heroes certainly require innate talent, Kang Hyun seems to lack such talents. Kang Hyun thinks to himself, wondering if the administrator is trying to provoke him. He is then surprised to hear the administrator admit to being a fan of his, delighted to watch Kang Hyun navigate the guides, not knowing how much joy it brings him. Kang Hyun asserts that there is something wrong with the administrator, but suddenly realizes something and asks whether the intelligence theme in Stage 5 is a task that changes over time. The administrator, uninterested in Kang Hyun's question, declares that time is up. The status window then displays a message congratulating Kang Hyun for completing Stage 8. The administrator reminds him that the guide is just the surface. There are still many challenges awaiting him. Whether he likes it or not, Kang Hyun will become a hero to save the world. Kang Hyun shouts, asking to wait and questioning what was really going on with Stage 5. There is no response, only the status window updating to show that he is the 62nd person to graduate from the guide. Kang Hyun, unable to contain his frustration, tried to shout but couldn't. He suddenly got up from the bed and pulled out a sock from his mouth, angrily asking, "What is this?" Sitting beside him, Kang Hyun asked if he was awake now. Knowing that her brother would shout upon waking, she had previously gagged him. Kang Hyun threw the sock away and questioned his sister on the necessity of gagging him with a sock. Kang Hyun laughed loudly and replied that if he didn't like it, he should keep his mouth shut when he wakes up. She continued, noticing the look on his face, asking if it indicated his failure. Mockingly, she inquired how much time he thought this would take. Kang Hyun opened the status window for his sister to see, asking if she could see the strength of their brother. He thought that now he had become the chosen one. Kang Hyun left his room, telling him to go make money. That morning, she had also made breakfast for him as a special reward. After breakfast, Kang Hyun checked his status window again. The title he had earned after completing level 8 added 2 points to all his stats. He organized all of his stats according to the guide. Kang Hyun took out an item he had obtained from a hobgoblin, a moment he had long awaited. The item was a skill book that allowed the user to learn the magic explosion skill, capable of launching a magical sphere that creates an explosion. Holding the book, Kang Hyun joyously screamed. After 4 months of screaming in the guide, Kang Hyun finally reached the realm of silent screaming. Having received the gift from the book, he decided to apply to the Awakening Training School. Izan Mian, a newly appointed official, had her first job at the Awakening Training School, where those who completed the guide could receive certification. The domestic Awakening training system was considered to be developing at a phenomenal pace, becoming one of the best systems in the world. Currently, those following them were merely rookies, but would be heroes in the future. Izan Mian felt it was wonderful to witness the beginning of their journey. However, these were just her thoughts a few hours ago. Now the person in front of Izan Mian was Kang Hyun, whose fierce appearance made her tremble. She wanted to see his citizen ID before processing his school admission. Kang Hyun had barely asked what was wrong when the girl started crying. People around started to pay attention to the two, constantly speaking ill of Kang Hyun, who had just entered the school. Some even boldly took out their phones to record the scene. Kang Hyun, feeling misunderstood, said, "That's not right. Wait, what have I done?" From a distance, Professor Kim Ae-yeon approached, asking what the matter was, and went to his An Myung to look at the files. Indeed, Kang Hyun looked very different from the photo in his ID. Kang Hyun spoke up, "Look, my appearance has changed due to his skill, but it's still real." He thought to himself that it really wasn't fair. Kang Hyun continued, saying if the professor didn't believe him, he could take a DNA test or a fingerprint analysis. Kim Ae-yeon asked if Kang Hyun had completed level 5. He calmly confirmed that he had. Before entering the school, Kang Hyun had intentionally altered details to avoid attracting attention. The professor continued to inquire if he had ever conquered an illegal dungeon. Level 12 was quite high. Kang Hyun thought to himself that he had intentionally lowered it by more than half, but was it still too high? Maintaining a calm demeanor, he replied that he had been a few times before the law was enacted. Izan Mian then asked what the Force Mana skill he listed in his list of specialties was. Kang Hyun chuckled and said it temporarily doubles strength. Seeing the professor about to ask more, Kang Hyun, annoyed, thought he asked too many questions. Kim Ae-yeon, noticing the impatience in his eyes, said just one more thing. At level 3, Awakeners receive a skill. At level 4, accessory. And at level 5, another skill. He needed to see all these rewards from Kang Hyun. Despite his impatience, Kang Hyun rolled up his sleeve, bit down, and the wound on his arm quickly healed itself. This was the skill Kang Hyun received at level 3. A ring at level 4, and at level 5, a skill to transmit fear to surrounding enemies with a roar. Kang Hyun asked the professor if it would be okay to use it here. Kim Ae-yeon replied it was fine, he could use it freely. In an instant, everyone in the room had to cover their ears to avoid the noise. After the inspection was complete, Kim Ae-yeon instructed Kang Hyun to go to the first floor of the adjacent Gunmu building. On his first day of class, Kang Hyun continually heard whispers about himself. He was almost denied entry because he looked too different from his ID photo. However, after attracting attention with a fierce roar, it seemed he had already made a bad impression on everyone. Someone sitting behind quietly commented that Kang Hyun had bullied that girl to the point where she disappeared. Hearing this misinformation, Kang Hyun couldn't do much more about it. Kim Ae-yeon entered the class and introduced himself, stating that from now on, he would be directing training at the Songnam branch of the training school. The professor announced that the training course would last 10 days, including theory classes in the morning and practical sessions in the afternoon. Meals and accommodations would be provided on site. Unless there were any serious issues, everyone would safely complete the training and receive certification. Kim Ae-yeon continued, noting that as everyone knew, it had been nearly 10 years since the world had changed. Information about dungeons and monsters appeared daily, so tactics were continuously evolving. In other words, what everyone was about to learn was not entirely a correct answer. There might be misinformation, or the information could soon become obsolete. Therefore, the professor would only teach the most crucial things to help everyone survive. Kang Hyun, silently listening, already felt disheartened upon his arrival. After the first session, Kang Hyun felt extremely bored and wondered if this would continue for 10 days. A man named Kwak Soo-il came over to introduce himself and offered a handshake. Kang Hyun quietly wondered who this Jim Hob was, but outwardly, he politely reached out and shook the man's hand. Unbeknownst to Kang Hyun, the newcomer was looking for trouble. He wanted to put Kang Hyun in his place right from the start, having taken a dislike to him since he caused a disturbance. Kang Hyun didn't need many words to realize that the other man was looking to stir up trouble. When the handshake became too tight, Kang Hyun enhanced his arm muscles with magic. Kwak Soo-il, not wanting to lose in a show of strength when he had invested all his stats into it, refused to back down despite the pain, as everyone was watching them. Due to using too much force, Kwak Soo-il's arm exploded. Kang Hyun was summoned to the professor's office. He assured Kim Ae-yeon that the muscle-brained guy had approached and offered to shake hands first. Then suddenly, while he was tensing his muscles, it exploded. Kim Ae-yeon asked if he really thought the professor would believe that. Angrily, Kang Hyun retorted that it wasn't about belief, but about the truth. Thanks to his unique ability, Strength of the Strong, Kang Hyun was able to increase his own strength by 1.5 times, thus avoiding injury. Professor Kim Ae-yeon, after a moment of silence and contemplation, questioned whether Kang Hyun's ability was called manpower, and mentioned that it was supposed to double the strength, not just increase it by 1.5 times. Kang Hyun, hiding his confusion, responded that it might be a misunderstanding due to his poor math skills. Kim Hyun sighed, said he understood, and allowed Kang Hyun to return to class. Back at his seat, Kang Hyun felt tired and stressed, even though it was just the first day. At that moment, a classmate approached and asked if he could sit next to him, then introduced himself as Yusong. He requested to call Kang Hyun brother since he had just turned 18 and recently completed the orientation phase. Kang Hyun told him to speak freely. Observing Yusong's appearance, who seemed older than even Kang Hyun, his eyes sparkled with curiosity, and he asked what had happened earlier that made the other man's hand explode. Top of the pyramid, what kind of skill is that? Kang Hyun thought this guy was not normal. He replied that it wasn't what it looked like. It was just the gym hog's muscles that spontaneously exploded. Kim Aeun entered the class to start the second lesson. Due to the delay, he could only summarize the key points. The professor informed everyone that dungeons were currently divided into two types: regular dungeons and unfinished dungeons. Regular dungeons are more common, with their gates breaking after 4 weeks. As everyone knew, a broken dungeon gate means that monsters will emerge from it. An unfinished dungeon is a type where the time of breakage cannot be determined. It might open earlier or later than 4 weeks, so constant vigilance is required. There are 2 ways to prevent a dungeon from breaking. One is to complete the dungeon by obtaining the central core or main core. The other is to periodically replace the usual core to delay the breakage. However, everyone needs to be very careful with the attack sequence. A man in the class shouted, asking about how to handle the monsters, expressing his impatience with the seemingly irrelevant information. Kang Hyun muttered to himself about another muscle brain. These muscle heads and the earlier gym hog were becoming a problem. The assistant professor standing behind spoke up, warning that if there was any further disruption, the disruptive student would be expelled. Kim Aeun signaled that it was fine and asked the student to come down. The man laughed loudly, looking at the teacher, and commented that he at least had some dignity. Kim Aeun pulled out his phone and set a timer for 1 minute. He told the disruptive student that from now on, he would only need to dodge his attacks for 1 minute. If he could injure the professor during that time, he would graduate immediately. If not, he would be expelled. Both Kang Hyun and Yusong whispered at the same time that this muscle brain was troublesome, but also amusing to watch. Kim Aeun repeatedly stated that from now on, even a single scratch on his body would result in immediate graduation, otherwise if failure would lead to expulsion. An elderly man drew his sword and questioned the instructor about his identity, daring to ask if he would regret his actions. The assistant stepped forward to stop the instructor, warning that the sword was real. Kim Aeun reassured him and beckoned the man to come forward. A chubby person announced the attack to the instructor, who easily dodged, commenting that announcing an attack rendered it ineffective. Even if it wasn't a surprise attack, the element of surprise is fundamental to an attack's effectiveness. Kim Aeun continuously pointed out the flaws in his opponent's attack strategy, noting that, as in the first instance, overly elaborate preparations would not wait for the opponent to strike. Merely swinging the sword wasn't enough. One must observe and fully anticipate the opponent's movements. The opponent, failing to hit his target, furiously declared enough and launched a powerful attack. Kim Aeun remarked that using full force wasn't always the best strategy, as larger movements tended to expose greater vulnerabilities and were more exhausting. Kim Aeun effortlessly disarmed his opponent, declaring that a minute had passed. The class watched in awe, reminded of a video they had seen of a professional fighter dodging a punch by merely tilting his head, wondering if there really was a difference among those with abilities. Kang Hyun observed silently, assessing Kim Aeun's agility and reaction speed, noting that even those with enhanced abilities like his could hardly keep up. He pondered who would win if a match were to happen between Kim Aeun and the instructor. Meanwhile, the person sitting next to him whispered a desire for a match, prompting Kang Hyun to decide never to sit next to him again to avoid any misunderstandings. The training academy schedule included theoretical lessons in the morning and practical training in the afternoon. On the first day of practice, everyone was trained in weapon skills, and Kim Aeun encouraged everyone to choose a weapon that suited them best. Initially, it was self-training, with teaching assistants periodically offering corrections, and Yusong, after selecting his weapon, sought out Kang Hyun for a sparring match, but the instructor from a distance reminded them that sparring was prohibited until the 6th day. During practice, Kang Hyun observed that the average level of everyone around was much lower than he had anticipated. As he was about to engage more actively, a teaching assistant corrected his posture, commenting that while he seemed to want to show off, it was useless during practice. Kang Hyun, annoyed, grabbed the assistant's clothes and challenged him to a fight. From a distance, Kim Aeun approached and announced to everyone that a simulation fight between a student and a teaching assistant was about to take place. He instructed assistant Kim Sung-in to follow the previous guidance while Kang Hyun continued to wield his sword as usual. With just one strike, Kang Hyun knocked the assistant to the ground. Kim Aeun calmly explained that the weapon skills they were practicing were in preparation for real combat, training the body to react instantly when attacked. Thanks to Kang Hyun, he highlighted to everyone the importance of reactive ability and reminded them never to assume that what they were learning was the definitive answer. Kim even asked for applause for the demonstration provided by the two. Meanwhile, Kang Hyun stood aside, still confused by the events, while Kim Aeun helped assistant Kim Sung-un up, appreciating his effort and just wanting to test a few things. In his training journal, Kang Hyun wrote about his first day, describing how he taught a lesson to a burly troublemaker. He also mentioned a guy named Yusong who always acted friendly but seemed a bit crazy. He found the theory lessons extremely boring and the practical sessions somewhat ineffective. The second day was much like the first, with morning strategy lessons and afternoon weapon training, with Yusong overly enthusiastic, prompting Kang Hyun to decide to avoid him. By the third day, Yusong was still the only one talking to Kang Hyun, extending to the fourth day when Kang Hyun was extremely frustrated. During sword practice, he was reprimanded by the teaching assistant for taking 2 swords instead of 1. By the 5th day, Kang Hyun wanted to go home so badly he didn't even bother to practice and just lay flat on the ground, responding indifferently to the assistant's inquiry that he was meditating. On the 6th day, Kang Hyun couldn't help asking his neighbor why he wasn't causing trouble, to which Yusong retorted, wasn't it Kang Hyun who had previously said they should quietly complete the course? Kang Hyun snapped that now, whether Yusong got expelled had nothing to do with him. And Yusong, clearly annoyed, told Kang Hyun that he only knew how to say the same old nonsense. He reminded him that today was the 6th day, and they could spar in the afternoon practice session, suggesting that something interesting was bound to happen. On the 6th day, during the sparring practice in the afternoon, Kang Hyun easily defeated his opponent without flaunting his strength. Upon returning to his spot, Yusong complimented him on his performance, to which Kang Hyun nonchalantly replied that the opponent was just too weak. Internally, Kang Hyun wondered what he should do next, observing that the fights on the platform looked like child's play. Overall, the level of everyone there was not as high as he had initially thought. Kang Hyun, not knowing much about things like talent, felt that ordinary people couldn't progress through many stages. He learned that the sparring would continue until the 8th day and wondered why they had to keep up with such dull activities. The next winner announced was training Kim Chang-woo. Kang Hyun silently praised him, thinking he was quite good but still preferring to fight instructor Kim Aeun if given a chance. Next, Yusong was called up. Kang Hyun remembered the madman's previous words about something interesting happening. He had a feeling that the madman wanted to stir up trouble, but with the instructor present, he doubted anything serious would occur. On the platform, Kim Aeun announced that trainee Lee Yuri was a mage and would use her own weapon instead of the training weapons, giving her an advantage. The officer asked Yusong if he had any problem with that, to which he smiled and said no. Noticing the club in Yusong's hand, Kim Aeun asked if his weapon wasn't supposed to be a sword, and Yusong retorted, asking if there was a rule that they could only use one type of weapon. The instructor had no further objections and asked them to prepare. From below, Kang Hyun observed this was the first time he had seen magic in real life. He wondered if he could learn magic too if it was included in the training. He noted that the magical instrument the girl was holding had not been seen during practice, presuming it must have been trained separately. During their match, Yusong managed to injure his opponent with his first attack. Despite Kim Aeun being nearby, he couldn't prevent the incident in time. Kang Hyun was frightened, realizing that Yusong was crazier than he had thought. Assistant Kim Sung-in immediately called for medical help following the incident. Kim Aeun, confronting Yusong with a weapon in hand, asked him if he was aware of what he was doing. Yusong nonchalantly replied that it was just a slip of the hand, suggesting that such accidents could happen during practice. Kim Aeun skeptically asked if he really believed that was acceptable. Kim Aeun then lowered his weapon and announced a 20-minute break for everyone, instructing them to return to their seats by 3 p.m. Meanwhile, Yusong was called aside to speak with the instructor privately. As they left, Kang Hyun's attention was drawn to Kim Aeun's familiar dagger. It was the same one used in a fight against a hobgoblin alongside him. Despite the incident, the practice session continued for the next 2 days, and Yusong was not expelled but continued to train as usual, though now under the vigilant watch of the instructors and assistants and with healers present. By the 8th day, no further incidents had occurred. Kang Hyun had initially decided to let things go but didn't want to miss this opportunity. He went to Kim Aeun's office, seeking a real sword fight with him since the training was almost over. Kim Aeun, holding his forehead, remarked that the graduation ceremony was in 2 days and questioned whether Kang Hyun really couldn't let things go peacefully. He also noted how exhausting being an instructor already was and warned Kang Hyun not to enter the instructor's room uninvited in the future. Kang Hyun, looking seriously at the instructor, commented that the training felt somewhat boring. He continued by asking Kim Aeun if he didn't feel restless, just wanting to sit around and file paperwork all day, and importantly, reminding him that they had met before. Kim Aeun acknowledged that the person he had encountered before was indeed Kang Hyun. He thanked him, although belatedly, for helping minimize damage during their previous encounter. On the battlefield, Kang Hyun held his weapon casually and then, as if realizing something, wondered if Kim Aeon had noticed him taking an item. Suddenly, Kim Aeon inquired whether Kang Hyun had completed Stage 5, remarking on the impressive sword in his possession, which he identified as a reward from Stage 6. Kang Hyun fabricated a story about finding it during a conquest, to which Kim Aeon responded with a compliment for a good excuse. It seemed that Kang Hyun was reluctant to answer any more questions, so Kim Aeon decided to respond with something he had also found during his conquests. Kang Hyun, despite being caught off guard, easily dodged the attack, earning genuine admiration from Kim Aeon. Kim had thought Kang Hyun was only focused on strength, but his speed was equally impressive. Kang Hyun reminded him that focusing on just one aspect would weaken him. He also mentioned his recovery skills, encouraging Kim Aeon to use his full strength. Kim Aeon agreed, acknowledging that there was no need to hold back anymore, especially after seeing Kang Hyun's astonishing physical power. The practice match continued with high spirits as Kim Aeon realized that Kang Hyun's recovery abilities seemed to match his own. Wanting to escalate the challenge, Kim Aeon attempted a strike that was supposedly unavoidable, but Kang Hyun blocked it effortlessly. Surprised that his attack couldn't penetrate, Kim Aeon found himself caught by Kang Hyun, who quickly retaliated with a strong tap to Kim's forehead, leading to Kim admitting defeat on the ground. Throughout the match, the instructor couldn't stop praising Kang Hyun for his strength, to which Kang Hyun humbly responded that Kim was strong as well. Officially, the sparring was a draw since they had agreed not to use skills, but Kang Hyun had apparently used his anyway. Kim Aeon, with a loud laugh, teased about the outcome, suggesting that Kang Hyun was the winner since he was disqualified for breaking the rules. Kang Hyun, slightly annoyed, argued that he couldn't deactivate his passive skills. As Kim Aeon got up to leave the field, he didn't forget to thank Kang Hyun, saying he felt better now. He told Kang Hyun to rest up because they had a dungeon conquest scheduled for the next day. The dungeon was owned by the Awakening Training School and was strictly monitored. Unauthorized entry would lead to immediate reporting and prosecution. That night, unbeknownst to others, a figure cloaked in a black hooded robe made their way into the dungeon. The following morning, Kim Aeon led the trainees to a location designed like a dungeon for educational purposes by the Awakening Ability Training School. This was the F-level Forest of Jekka dungeon. Inside, the Haika monster that appeared was stronger than the monsters typically found in normal F-level dungeons. However, there were two reasons why this place was designed as an educational dungeon. Firstly, it was a battlefield-type dungeon, filled with various traps, though none were more dangerous than the monsters. Secondly, since Jekka did not live in packs, it was possible for individuals to lure and deal with them one at a time. Kim Aeon mentioned that more detailed explanations would be provided once inside the dungeon. Kang Hyun, peering inside, thought to himself that this was his first real entry into a dungeon, since the orientation part began in one. He had never passed through a door like this before and felt a light, floating sensation as he moved through it. Upon opening his eyes again, the scenery had completely changed. The trainees were astounded by the forest within the dungeon. Kang Hyun quietly asked In Yusong whether they could return to their original location if they went back through the gate they had just passed, and Yusong reassured him that they could return. Annoyed, Kang Hyun turned away and told him not to talk to him anymore as he did not want to be seen as crazy, and Yusong laughed loudly, pointing out that Kang Hyun had been the one to start the conversation. On the other side, Kim Aeon began to speak, announcing that the assistant instructor would lure Jekka and demonstrate the technique. Then, everyone would hunt a monster in groups of 5, reminding them to move to a spacious area that was easier to fight in. As they moved, Kim Aeon further explained about Jekka. Jekka was a bird-like monster, slightly over 2 meters tall, resembling an ostrich. Its distinctive features were its agile legs and strong beak, which could break armor. Because it was potentially lethal, extreme caution was necessary. The strategy was for several people to surround it to immobilize its legs. Kim Aeon paused his explanation as the system simultaneously signaled that the core of the dungeon had been removed and the exit gate opened. The dungeon was about to collapse. The surrounding scenes seemed to crack like a breaking mirror, causing panic among the trainees. Kim Aeon loudly instructed everyone not to panic and to exit through the door one at a time. They were urged not to push each other, needing to get out before the dungeon completely collapsed. However, there was still enough time, so everyone was instructed to move in order. Outside the gate, everyone harbored their own doubts, unsure of what had just occurred. Hadn't the announcement stated that the core had been removed? Wasn't the dungeon supposed to be complete? Outside, Kim Aeon counted the trainees, relieved that everyone had made it out safely. He wondered who had completed the dungeon. As the dungeon continued to collapse, a large number of monsters began escaping. Kim Aeon ordered the assistants to quickly evacuate the trainees from the area. Kang Hyun called out, asking Kim Aeon what was happening. He replied that trainee Kang Hyun was in the right place at the right time. This was a dungeon breach situation, where the trainee support was needed at the front lines. Kang Hyun, confused, asked again about the dungeon breaking. Kim A impatiently explained that if a dungeon is destroyed or its core removed without defeating the boss monster, the remaining monsters will overflow through the gate. The instructor asked, "Had me learn this theory in class?" They no longer had much time left as Gecko was about to break out. He approached and asked if that was magic. Kang Hyun smiled mysteriously and replied that it was a secret. More importantly, he told him to look behind, as a mutated Jekka had appeared. It was a boss monster. Kim Eun anxiously noted that reinforcements had still not arrived. Although Kang Hyun had faced a boss before, the gigantic body of the monster presented a significant problem. Kim Eun's worries grew as this was the first time the two of them were fighting a real monster together. However, he was unaware that at that moment the two were actually competing over the newly appeared monster. And Yusong laughingly said that the monster was his, urging his younger brother to let him have it. Kang Hyun firmly responded that it belonged to him. After this event concluded, it was also the graduation ceremony for the trainees the following day. That evening, after returning from the dungeon, Kim Eun went to see Han Sayan, the leader of the Danon Guild. She asked if there had been an incident during that day's dungeon training. Kim Eun confirmed that someone had broken into the dungeon and deliberately triggered a dungeon explosion. According to reports, this was an act of dungeon terrorism that had been occurring for a month. Han Sayan continued, asking if there were any stand-up trainees. Kim Eun immediately responded that there were two. They were the ones who had defeated the mutated boss Gekka. One was a trainee with exceptional physical strength. His speed and agility were at monster levels, but his greatest strength was his incredible recovery ability. Not only was he durable, but his fearlessness in the face of injury led to unpredictable tactics that troubled their enemies. The other was a different type, a genius in combat with remarkable reaction speed and effective techniques. However, his violent nature was his biggest limitation. Han Sayan interrupted the instructor, noting how rare it was for him to praise others so much. She asked if he had proposed recruiting them yet. Kim Eun replied that it would be illegal for him as an instructor to do so. Han Sayan complained about his always being so rigid. The instructor retorted that it was normal for employees to resemble their boss. Returning to the main issue, Han Sayan seriously stated that it was good to become an instructor, but urged him to return to the guild soon, as there was something strange about this incident. At the graduation ceremony the next morning, the principal thanked everyone for their hard work over the days. He hoped they would become great people. Sitting below, Kang Hyun wondered if that man was the principal. He had seen Kim Eun so frequently that he thought he was the highest authority. As Kang Hyun and In Yusong left the school gate, Kang Hyun discovered that In Yusong was actually a wealthy heir who had been born with a silver spoon. Outside, a flashy car was waiting, along with a butler. And Yusong urged Kang Hyun to hurry into the car, offering him a ride home. Just as Kang Hyun was about to get in, Kim Eun called out to him from behind. Kang Hyun laughed and asked if Kim came to say goodbye, teasing that he didn't expect him to be so sentimental. Kim Eun sighed and replied it wasn't exactly a goodbye, but let it be considered as such. His main purpose was to inform them about the dungeon explosion incident from the previous day. He announced that the rewards for completing the dungeon would soon be delivered to both of them. Kim Eun emphasized that they would be in touch again soon. Kang Hyun was not satisfied, questioning if Kim only came to say that. He expected at least some well wishes. Kim Eun paused, turned back, and told Kang Hyun that he was truly strong and would even become stronger. He was sure they would meet again in a dungeon, but reminded Kang Hyun never to forget the responsibilities of a power user now that he was one. After returning home, Kang Hyun playfully stuck his power user certification on his forehead and asked his sister, Kang Hyun, if she could see his potential. She, absorbed in her phone, replied affirmatively, acknowledging his achievement. He jokingly warned his sister not to act too cocky anymore, declaring that from the next day he would conquer every dungeon. Kang Hyun whispered to himself, wondering how to conquer dungeons. Would they just appear on a map? Kang Hyun, lying on the couch, reminded him about the radar app for power users, suggesting everything he needed was probably inside it. Seeing her brother excitedly run off, Kang Hyun was amused, reflecting on how he used to play many online games, yet seemed to be growing sillier by the day. Kang Hyun focused on the app, which contained dungeon maps, monster information, and options for team recruitment. He thought to himself that he needed to earn a lot of money to show off to their mother. He learned that the reward for conquering the lowest-ranked dungeon was about 20 million won. Moreover, mana stones, a new energy source dropped by monsters, were incredibly valuable. When Kang Hyun's parents back in the countryside heard about their son receiving his certification, he also sent his mother 10 million won as spending money. His father laughed upon hearing this from his mother, proudly commenting that now his son was earning even more than him. Kang Hyun's mother expressed her worries, having heard about many people getting injured or even losing their lives. His father, however, thought differently, insisting that Kang Hyun should be left to handle his own affairs, especially given the alternative of being unemployed at his age. He also mentioned that television broadcasts had advised that entering dungeons required forming teams. Kang Hyun wasn't the type to take unnecessary risks. He just needed reminders to take care of himself. After all, Kang Hyun had always been intelligent from a young age. Kang Hyun's mother attempted to call to remind him, but he didn't pick up because he was inside a dungeon. His father reassured her, guessing that their son was probably sleeping, and suggested they call him the next day instead. He also reminded her to tell Kang Hyun about an incident that happened at the supermarket when they next spoke. His mother disagreed, believing the government would handle it, but his father questioned how long they should wait. If their son had a team, it might be better to call him. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, the squad of Orsu warriors was stealthily infiltrating different parts of the city. The next morning, Kang Hyun left the dungeon and returned to his car, pondering whether he should venture into an E-rank dungeon that same day or if he had done enough already. He ultimately decided it was better to be cautious, especially since he wasn't sure if the resurrection feature was applicable in real life. Kang Hyun decided to put all this aside for now, intending to go home, get some sleep, and then enjoy a beef dinner with his sister. When he finally checked his phone, he was momentarily panicked to see numerous missed calls from his sister. Upon hearing what his sister said, Kang Hyun immediately returned home. The siblings sat in front of the TV to learn about the current situation in their hometown related to a major dungeon outbreak in Hangre. The government announced that they were doing their utmost to find a quick solution. The Ministry of Defense, in collaboration with civilian power user groups, had sealed off Hangre City to prevent further damage. However, concerns were growing among the isolated residents in the area. In response, the Dangun Association declared their active participation in the rescue operations. Kang Hyun, watching her brother prepare to leave, asked indirectly whether he was really going. Kang Hyun smiled, reassuring her not to worry and reminding her of his training as a guide, and told her to wait for him at home. Kang Hyun reminded her brother to be careful not to get swept away in trying to show off. As Kang Hyun headed for the door, he told his sister not to worry, promising to bring their parents back soon. Upon his arrival in town, military personnel initially blocked him from entering. He showed his power user ID and questioned their refusal. Their superior, peeking out from a vehicle, ordered them to let him in, stating all power users were allowed entry but the military would not be responsible for his safety. Kang Hyun thanked the man and quickly drove through. After checking around, Kang Hyun learned that at least 5 dungeons had been opened, including an E-level dungeon. He hoped his parents could hold on until he arrived. He said if no monsters appeared, he should reach them within 2 hours. Suddenly, a large wild boar knocked over Kang Hyun's vehicle. He crawled out and cursed his bad luck. Staring at the boar, Kang Hyun angrily blamed it for damaging his beloved vehicle and vowed revenge. The noise attracted numerous goblins from the forest toward him. Kang Hyun grimaced, joking that in a past life he must have burned down a goblin nation because as soon as he forgot about them, they reappeared and caused trouble. Telling himself to move on as he didn't have time to deal with them, he quickly ran away from the large wild boar. Laughing heartily, Kang Hyun often remarked that the best revenge is forgiveness, brother. Just as he escaped, the goblins clashed with the wild boars. He stopped at a safe distance, laughing aloud, encouraging them to fight on. His car was already damaged and he didn't have much time to waste on unimportant matters. Thus, Kang Hyun continued running on foot to his parents' house, a task that was not easy. It was already dark and Kang Hyun needed to conserve his phone battery so he couldn't use it as a light. He regretted not taking the well-lit main road instead of a shortcut. While checking his phone, Kang Hyun sensed a strong force approaching from behind. Acting on instinct, he swiftly turned and struck the air, instantly killing a wolf. Kang Hyun, startled, questioned if they were the kind that could become invisible. It seemed he could not relax and sleep easily now. After spending a considerable time clearing the area of wolves, Kang Hyun climbed a tree to sleep. Waking up at dawn, he couldn't rest comfortably after a night of fighting, and sleeping in a tree was hardly comfortable. Kang Hyun made every minute count as he continued running towards his parents' home. Kang Hyun's mother was extremely worried, uncertain if it was safe for her son to come. The mobile tower was also malfunctioning, adding to her anxiety since she couldn't contact him. Arriving at the beginning of the street, Kang Hyun encountered a group of ORCs. He saw this group as merely a warm-up. He silently told his parents he was on his way. The ORCs were quickly dispatched by Kang Hyun, barely recognizable after the fight. As someone who had conquered an F-class dungeon alone, fighting a group of ORCs was relatively simple for him. If they kept coming at him, it wouldn't be too exhausting. Kang Hyun paused as he heard growls from behind and 3 Orcu warriors appeared. He cursed loudly, realizing this was an E-class, not F-class dungeon. Before fighting, Kang Hyun shouted towards his parents' house, telling them to stay inside and keep quiet. Kang Hyun's parents couldn't believe their eyes, mistaking their son for a monster at first. They whispered, wondering what had happened over the past few months. Despite some difficulty, Kang Hyun managed to defeat the 3 Orcu warriors. Things became more challenging as the noise of the battle attracted another wave of ORCs. At the rear, there stood a towering ORC general. Kang Hyun lifted his sword and asked if it was the leader, noting its dreadful appearance. He had been trying to conserve mana for recovery, but it seemed that was no longer possible. Kang Hyun used a significant amount of mana to summon a mighty roar, but the Orochi general was unaffected. It kept punching Kang Hyun, who then realized it was merely toying with him. Due to the excessive mana consumption, Kang Hyun's body was unable to recover. He even wondered if he could resurrect in this world. However, Kang Hyun refused to flee while his family was behind him. Driven to madness at the sight of the Orochi warriors climbing towards where his parents stood, Kang Hyun was finally defeated by the Orochi general in his last moments of consciousness. A while later, thanks to the arrival of the Dangan Association, the residents were secured and the Orochis were repelled. They first evacuated the injured and ensured the safety of the others. Due to someone managing to gather the Orochis together, the damage in the area was less severe than in neighboring regions. The leader of the Dangan Association asked if the person who held off the Orochis until their arrival was the man beside him. A voice filled with sorrow responded that he had unfortunately passed away. The leader ordered his team to take good care of Kang Hyun's body. However, when they turned back, his body had disappeared. At that moment, somewhere else, Kang Hyun woke up thinking he had died. After being killed by the monster, Kang Hyun revived thanks to his resurrection ability. However, he faced a penalty of a 1-level decrease and a 50% reduction in all stats for 24 hours. Once Kang Hyun realized that 24 hours had passed since his death, he panicked and hurried to his parents' house. His body felt heavy and less agile after the resurrection. Kang Hyun had no choice but to use all his abilities while silently praying that everything would be alright. After running for 5 hours with a heavy body, what greeted him was the sight of his hometown in ruins. Wandering all night, Kang Hyun finally reached a military unit, where he was able to borrow a phone from an officer to contact Kang Hyun. He then received news about his parents. His father had lost an arm and his mother was unconscious. 2 months had passed since the terrorist event in Kang Hyun's hometown. Currently, there was news that the Dagon Association was preparing to hunt a boss in a D-class dungeon. Another update from the association leader Han Seon indicated that a C-class dungeon had recently appeared. As per his daily routine, Kang Hyun was preparing to leave home early in the morning. Hana Hyun chased after her brother, asking if he was heading to the dungeon again, reminding him that he had already died 3 times that week. Kang Hyun knew her brother was blaming himself after their parents' mishap. Just before closing the door, his sister managed to say that it wasn't his fault, urging him to stop blaming himself. Inside the dungeon, Kang Hyun was not alone. There was another team conquering it as well. The ace of that team was continuously leveling up, thinking that if he kept progressing like this, he would soon not be with these losers anymore. His goal was to reach level 35 by next month and join the Dagon Association. However, for now, he had to pretend to be a good person. While he was still feeling smug, they encountered Kang Hyun entering the dungeon alone. The group loudly cautioned him that it was very dangerous to go into the central dungeon alone, but Kang Hyun did not stop and continued forward. The group hesitated, wondering if they should follow him. Eventually, they decided they could not leave Kang Hyun alone and followed behind. Leading the way, Kang Hyun used the Secret of Wayne, a power that increases all stats by 40% using magic, to clear the path. The team, worried for Kang Hyun, followed and could only gape in amazement. Kang Hyun had just received the Secret of Wayne yesterday. It synergized well with his physical recovery skill. Kang Hyun thought if he didn't have a higher level physical recovery skill, he would have been in trouble. His current A-level physical recovery skill allowed him to heal and regenerate wounds on his body using magic. The team behind him gradually approached and asked if Kang Hyun was alright. He looked at them puzzled and asked them to please step aside. A team member stepped forward to ask if he wasn't going to pick up the magic stones from the corpses. Kang Hyun coldly responded that it was unnecessary. The group was secretly delighted, thinking about how much money they could make from the magic stones. Kang Hyun, uninterested in the matter, was pressed for time. What he needed now was to become even stronger. After Kang Hyun left, the team was still puzzled about what kind of person he was. However, they quickly moved past it, focusing on the fact that they had made a decent sum of money from the magic stones Kang Hyun had left behind. Someone loudly wondered if he might be the person rumored to be conquering dungeons alone. The strongest member of the group dismissed it as impossible. Even if the rumor was true, this was not an F-class dungeon but an E-class one. Conquering an E-class dungeon alone was something not even Han Seon had achieved. Before he finished speaking, the dungeon announced that its core had been taken and the exit gates had opened, to their astonishment. On the other side, after conquering the dungeon, Kang Hyun received the armor of Antria, which made the user's skin tougher. MC calculated that using the Secret of Wayne and physical recovery had exhausted his magic power. Using the newly acquired skill might not be wise. Moreover, using many skills did not necessarily make him stronger. MC knew that no matter how powerful the abilities, they would become useless if not used correctly. Kang Hyun understood that losing calm in a critical situation was akin to defeat. Even though if he wanted to become stronger at any cost, he couldn't recklessly do so on his own. After conquering the dungeon with his team, they were surrounded by a swarm of reporters as they exited. They had received information that someone had recently cleared a dungeon alone and heard that he was there today, so they wanted an interview. The group honestly replied that it wasn't them. Then, pointing to Kang Hyun, who was walking alone, they affirmed that it was him. The multitude of flashing lights overwhelmed him before he could react. The crowd pushed forward, eagerly asking if he was the ability user from the recent rumors. In addition to the reporters, representatives from various organizations were eager to recruit MC. Kang Hyun, annoyed, ignored them. He loudly stated that he didn't care about the rumors and they should get out of his way as they were blocking him. One reckless reporter stared at Kang Hyun, provocatively asking what was wrong with him. MC, angered by the provocation, glared back at the reporter, questioning what they wanted to do. Around them, many speculated that MC was just a thug, with some even boldly guessing he had a criminal record. Uninterested, Kang Hyun headed back to his car, preparing to drive away. They were too much of a nuisance, wasting a lot of his time. Just then, a smiling stranger approached his car, telling him there was no need to be wary, as he was here to help. The man, introduced as Seon Yeonho, was a member of the Superpowers Alliance. He explained that they had been watching Kang Hyun for a while. If he agreed to join, they would provide him with all the support he needed. Seon Yeonho added that Kang Hyun didn't need to decide immediately and could contact them whenever he wanted. Holding the business card, Kang Hyun realized that this was the Superpowers Alliance. Unlike other profit-driven organizations, this one was established to support the rights of those with abilities. MC had never known about such support organizations before. Putting this aside, the most pressing issue for Kang Hyun was his magic use. Currently, most of his magic was consumed by the secrets of Wayne and bodily regeneration, leaving him no spare time. MC was extremely frustrated as he couldn't fully utilize the Antria's outer shell and couldn't even properly use his offensive skills. Remembering the item, Kang Hyun wanted to find something better than what he already had. The next day in the city of Hanam, there was a place known as Goblin Village in an E-class dungeon. Capturing the sorcerers, there would likely yield a ring that increased 1 or 2 magic stats. Occasionally, a ring with 4 stats could also be found. The dungeon boss was the Great Goblin Sorcerer. Capturing it would surely result in a ring with superior performance. The place was originally a hidden gem that only those in the know would silently gather to make money from. However, recently, some people had taken over the land without permission and denied others access, claiming it as their own. Meanwhile, the local authorities didn't care as long as the dungeon didn't collapse. Therefore, they paid no attention to this group of people. An anonymous person posted the entire situation on a forum, hoping that a major organization or something similar would come to clean up the area. Many commented below that it was better to give up. The group was really awful, with rumors that they even attacked others. Following the address posted on the forum, Kang Hyun found his way to the dungeon. He was curious because there was no one guarding the entrance. As he entered, several people were already waiting inside. They noticed his expensive coat and thought today they had hit the jackpot. The only woman in the group mockingly said that she had dreamt of a pig yesterday and today they were going to make a killing. They asked Kang Hyun if he hadn't heard the rumors. This place now belonged to the bait group. MC asked them what about it. The woman replied that if he wanted to enter without permission, he had to pay. If he wanted to be let off, he should hand over everything. Not waiting for the woman to continue, Kang Hyun kicked the man next to him, knocking him to the ground. The woman, enraged, yelled, "What the hell, you bastard, want to die?" MC then swiftly defeated several more of them. Kang Hyun enjoyed fighting these despicable people because he didn't have to feel guilty. Suddenly, the woman used a long-range skill to attack him from behind. He turned around and thanked her, saying that she had helped him learn something new. At the same moment, another group arrived asking who Kang Hyun was and why he dared do this to the bait group. A bold man drew his sword and aimed it at MC as a warning. Kang Hyun smiled, saying it was convenient they showed up just when he needed someone to lead the way. The dungeon, a world governed by strength, violence, and money, has seen him climb to a unique position within the guild, akin to a tiger growing wings. He confidently steps up and tells his teammates that as long as he is in this dungeon, there is nothing to fear. He laughs loudly at Kang Hyun, telling him he better not dream of returning. However, a single punch from Kang Hyun takes his life. Everyone is in disbelief at what just occurred. Despite their numbers, they now fear a single man. Kang Hyun loudly gives them 5 seconds to regroup, declaring the start of the selection process for his exclusive guild. After the evaluation, the lowest-ranked member of Bait named Kim Seong-woo is accepted. The rest ask what about them. The MC retorts, asking if they plan to reform and lead normal lives, to which they unanimously reply they will live well and stop doing bad things. Kang Hyun steps forward, laughs, and throws another punch, questioning if they think he would believe them. Clearly lying, they are just a bunch of murderers. After dealing with the dishonest crowd, Kang Hyun and Kim Seong-woo proceed deeper into the dungeon. Not all dungeons are the same. Some are even bigger than cities. The MC marvels at the vastness, following the guide and asking if he plans to take them on a detour. Kim Seong-woo replies no, he's just avoiding roads with monsters. The MC mockingly calls it a waste of effort, suggesting they head where the monsters are since he's bored now. Kim Seong-woo innocently asks if that's true, then he'll lead them to where the monsters are. Kang Hyun scolds him, reminding him it's getting dark. Confused, Kim Seong-woo stops and asks the MC what they should do next. Frustrated, Kang Hyun decides they should find something to eat. Kim Seong-woo is the one who prepares their meal. Holding a cup of noodles, Kang Hyun curiously asks how old he is, noting he must have been a student before becoming an expert. Kim Seong-woo honestly replies that he needs money. Tuition fees keep rising, and balancing part-time work and scholarships has become impossible. Things worsened when his father's business failed and her family's financial situation plummeted dramatically. Kang Hyun, finding nothing interesting in the conversation, asks Kim Seong-woo if he's trying to sell a story and questions if he wants to die. Kim Seong-woo, feeling wronged, replies that he was just answering Kang Hyun's question. The MC reminds him to stop whining and eat his noodles as they need to always be ready. While sleeping, Kim Seong-woo realizes this is his chance to kill the MC. However, recalling the morning's incident where the MC single-handedly took down a team, he concludes that he can't kill this man and thinks about escaping instead. But as Kim Seong-woo stands up to leave, Kang Hyun catches him and warns that running away now would certainly lead to his death. The next morning, the two set off and soon arrive at the territory of the goblins where the dungeon's core is located. Kang Hyun senses a tremendous concentration of magic there. Kim Seong-woo, amazed, asks if he can feel it, but only receives a dismissive response. Kim Seong-woo tells himself to stay calm, believing he won't be mocked anymore once Kang Hyun is dead. In the dungeon known as Goblin Village, all the monsters are concentrated at the core, but they also patrol around the area. Kim Seong-woo remembers that the Bait Guild was once attacked by these patrol soldiers. So far, they haven't encountered any patrols, suggesting that all forces might be concentrated at the territory. Kim Seong-woo is secretly pleased, thinking about how he will see if the MC can survive an attack from an E-rank dungeon. Contrary to Kim Seong-woo's thoughts, Kang Hyun is actually very excited. Unbeknownst to him, slaying goblins is Kang Hyun's forte. As Kang Hyun rushes into a group of goblins, Kim Seong-woo seizes the chance to escape from the MC. He loudly curses his bad luck for meeting Kang Hyun and hopes never to see him again. Kang Hyun turns around and warns that if he runs, he will die. Kim Seong-woo, finding his opportunity to flee, naturally doesn't believe the threats. Moreover, he thinks that no matter how strong Kang Hyun is, he couldn't possibly defeat the numerous goblins. However, a dungeon announcement soon shatters his thoughts. The dungeon's main core has been eliminated, and the gates leading outside are being opened. Kim Seong-woo silently wipes the cold sweat from his forehead and questions if this is all a dream. The Goblin Village dungeon is an E rank, where all monsters are centered around the main core. Thus, upon receiving the notification that the main core of the dungeon had been eliminated, Kim Seong-woo became terrified. He could not predict the extent of Kang Hyun's power. His mouth continuously whispered in disbelief, questioning how one person alone could clear the entire dungeon. He didn't understand how Kang Hyun could withstand the overwhelming power within the core. Although Kim Seong-woo knew Kang Hyun was strong, he couldn't ascertain the exact nature of his strength, speculating whether it was super strength or super endurance. Of course, both were important, but what truly mattered was overwhelming defensive power and an unwavering resolve against enemies. If one could withstand the monster's attacks and advance directly to the leader, victory was certain. It was a risky plan where a moment's carelessness could lead to death. Previously, Kim Seong-woo had thought Kang Hyun was a fool, but with this outcome, he wanted to know who the MC really was. After Kang Hyun received a ring from the Goblin Sorcerer, enhancing his magic power and achieving his initial goal, he next wanted to find Kim Seong-woo and kill him as he had said. Upon returning, Kang Hyun was not only welcomed by Kim Seong-woo, but also by a crowd of people. Kang Hyun thought to himself, was he so formidable that they had to bring an entire gang to deal with him? The MC readied himself, calling for 30 people to step forward first. Suddenly, a voice from the crowd claimed it was all a misunderstanding. The person explained they didn't come to fight but to talk. Jung Ui-hyun, the leader of the Bait Guild, stated it seemed a member of his team had been disrespectful to Kang Hyun. He impatiently urged to get straight to the point without beating around the bush. Jung Ui-hyun expressed a desire for Kang Hyun to join their team, offering him all the support and prestige he needed, including a position on the executive board. After speaking, Jung Ui-hyun silently resolved to recruit this rough diamond at any cost. If he could bring him into the front lines, their guild could become the largest. Kang Hyun immediately refused, aware that he was not easily persuaded. Jung Ui-hyun, undeterred, took out a business card and handed it to the MC, urging him to think it over carefully. Kang Hyun accepted the business card, but then tore it into pieces right in front of Jung Ui-hyun. He declared, although he was a tough guy, he did not conduct himself like a gangster, unlike them. Kang Hyun, looking over the crowd, scoffed at the thought of third-rate thugs feeling proud to recruit him. He laughed loudly, asking Jung Ui-hyun if he was getting hot-headed, and suggested they could settle it with a fight right then and there. Jung Hyun declined, stating that he had only come to talk that day. He affirmed that there would be other opportunities to meet. Annoyed, Kang Hyun told them to get lost and that there wouldn't be a next time. Encountering them was nothing but trouble, time again, just like pests swarming in. Kim Song-woo, observing from behind, silently acknowledged that the madman was indeed impressive. After the MC had left, someone shouted that Kim Song-woo was the one who had shown him the way. Hearing this, Kim Song-woo trembled and knelt before Jung Hyun. Jung Hyun, grabbing a sword from someone next to him, asked if Kim Song-woo still wanted to live, then punched him in the stomach. He declared that a treacherous scoundrel didn't deserve to live. Following this, Jung Hyun ordered his people to gather information about Kang Hyun. He knew the MC was a strong person, as arrogant as he was. However, he was sure Kang Hyun wouldn't be able to maintain his attitude if something happened to his loved ones. If he couldn't be subdued by simple means, then exploiting his weaknesses was the only way. Taking a break from his perilous days in the dungeon, Kang Hyun went out to eat with his sister. Kang Hyun joyfully commented that it's unusual for someone fresh out of college without a job like him to still frequently eat grilled beef. She then asked if her brother had found a job yet. Kang Hyun simply replied that if one has a little money, what else to do but eat, since eating is a fundamental human need. Remembering their mother in the hospital, Kang Hyun asked his sister if she had gotten any better. She happily informed him that their mother was about to wake up. Kang Hyun smiled, relieved. Kang Hyun noticed this rare moment, as it had been a long time since her brother had smiled. Recently, he had always been stern and serious, not like before. Feeling embarrassed, Kang Hyun excused himself to go to the bathroom. Just then, upon returning, he discovered a young man had just left their table. Teasingly, he asked his sister if someone was trying to make her acquaintance. Kang Hyun picked up a piece of paper, explaining that the man had come looking for him and had left a letter for him. Confused, Kang Hyun wondered why the visitor didn't stay to talk and hurriedly left when he returned. He boastfully told his sister that people come to thank him quite often. But the content of the letter had a profound impact on Kang Hyun. It was from Jung Hyun. Holding complex emotions, Kang Hyun and his sister headed home. He couldn't guess what Jung Hyun's scheme was, nor why he seemed to have designs on his family. Kang Hyun considered stopping his dungeon activities and staying at home. However, his sister had to go out frequently, which perhaps deterred any attacks. Kang Hyun received a call from his father, announcing that his mother had awakened. She was stable, but the doctors said she needed further monitoring and treatment. His father also mentioned that a friend named Jung Hyun had visited. He had asked his father to send his regards to Kang Hyun. His father inquired further if this person was a neighbor, as he had never met him before. At this, Kang Hyun truly became irritated. The very next morning, he went to the school to find Kim Hyun. He needed to confront him to protect his family. While Kim Hyun was in a meeting, he received news that a formidable person was causing a disturbance in the main hall, claiming he wanted to meet him. Startled, Kim Hyun couldn't immediately recall who it was. Upon learning that the visitor was Kang Hyun, the faculty member was even more surprised. It was true that he had once said that they would meet again soon, but he never imagined it would be under these circumstances. The faculty member was curious about what had brought Kang Hyun here. Kang Hyun directly addressed his wish to hire Kim Hyun. No longer displaying surprise, Kim Hyun calmly asked for more details. Kang Hyun didn't hide anything and shared that the bait organization was targeting his family. Therefore, he needed someone to protect his family while he went to eliminate them. Kim Hyun, whispering about protection, then asked exactly what happened. He was well aware of the bait organization's notoriety. However, under the current circumstances, Kim Hyun saw no legitimate reason to either destroy them or protect Kang Hyun's family. Kang Hyun replied with a smile, suggesting a deal where one would eliminate the threat and another would protect the family, benefiting both parties. Kim Hyun remarked that Kang Hyun, like during his school days, never compromised easily. He wanted to know why it had to be him, suspecting it wasn't just because he was a member of the Dangan organization. Kang Hyun candidly admitted that in his eyes, Kim Hyun was the strongest among all the awakened individuals he had met. He proposed a condition: protect his family for a week, and he would reward Kim Hyun generously. Unexpectedly, Kim Hyun mentioned that he wasn't boasting, but he had already made a lot of money, perhaps even more than Kang Hyun could imagine. Moreover, Kim Hyun also held the position of vice president of Dangan. Therefore, if Kang Hyun wanted his help, he would have to offer something other than money. Kang Hyun repeated his words, not money, and then jokingly asked if it wasn't his own body he was supposed to offer. Kim Hyun, annoyed, asked if Kang Hyun was here to negotiate at all. He felt that talking more with Kang Hyun would only frustrate him more, so he made a suggestion himself. It wasn't a grand proposal, but if successful, he should meet the president of Dangan. He needed consensus, but with this condition, they could help as an organization. Kim Hyun agreed to assign 5 bodyguards to stay close to Kang Hyun's family, both inside and outside their home. Furthermore, he had already found a suitable excuse to arrange for 5 bodyguards at the company where Kang Hyun worked. Kim Ae-yeon reminded Kang Hyun that it was best to act carefully because Bait was a large organization. Kang Hyun responded that compared to Dangan's company, it wasn't that big. Kim Ae-yeon then reminded him that the size of an office building does not determine the size of an organization, especially considering the unusually large number of dungeons they owned. He was sure they had other schemes brewing behind the scenes. Additionally, Kang Hyun had mentioned contacting him after receiving a letter from Jung Woo-hyun, which meant that the group had probably already mobilized their forces and might even be planning an ambush. Kang Hyun replied that the safety of his family was his top priority, so if they were ambushed, he was prepared to face it. He thanked Kim Ae-yeon for agreeing to help protect his family. Before leaving, he didn't forget to give Kim Ae-yeon a card, smiling and saying not to conclude that something bad would happen. He couldn't explain in detail now, but was sure that by the next day, he would return safe and sound. At the Bait organization, Jung Woo-hyun personally welcomed Kang Hyun. He laughed and said they had been waiting for him for a long time. Kang Hyun unintentionally misunderstood, asking if preparing such a large group was meant as a challenge. Jung Woo-hyun clarified that it wasn't because Kang Hyun was also considered family by the Bait organization, so everyone was there to welcome him. Kang Hyun interrupted him, questioning if he just referred to them as a family, asserting that to the people in front of him, the concept of family meant nothing. Kang Hyun didn't say much before using a magic explosion to attack them. The crowd, struck by the force of his attack, thought he had gone mad. They didn't understand what he was trying to achieve. Jung Woo-hyun angrily cursed the crazy bastard, questioning what would happen if the ground collapsed. After the attack, everyone present was down and unable to get up. Only Jung Woo-hyun, still smiling, asked Kang Hyun to think it over carefully, insisting it wasn't too late. They could still be good collaborators. Kang Hyun coldly asked what he was babbling about. Moreover, it was Jung Woo-hyun who had crossed the line first. At this point, Jung Woo-hyun bowed his head, apologizing for touching Kang Hyun's family but hoping he would reconsider. Jung Woo-hyun analyzed that if they joined forces, they could potentially overthrow the leadership of Dangan. He critiqued the leader of Dangan, Han Seo-yeon, as being all talk and no action. Jung Woo-hyun reiterated, asking Kang Hyun if he understood the value of their alliance. Kang Hyun laughed and responded that he was indeed the type full of nonsense. Jung Woo-hyun didn't stop there. He laughed loudly, pointing out that just in this building alone, there were already over 200 members of their organization. Nationally, he estimated the number to be double that. At the moment, Bait only lacked one thing: a representative. This person had to be an unparalleled strong leader to guide the members of the organization. With such a leader, the Bait organization could then expand internationally. Kang Hyun waited for Jung Woo-hyun to finish, then replied that listening to him was like listening to an elementary school student giving a presentation. It was at this point that Jung Woo-hyun turned hostile, claiming that someone of Kang Hyun's low societal standing could never understand his ambitions. Jung Woo-hyun scolded someone he considered beneath him, questioning how such a lowly person could understand his grand ambitions. Meanwhile, Kang Hyun, amused, looked around asking if everyone heard the derogatory term being used, highlighting its outdatedness in this century. The MC questioned Jung Woo-hyun about what kind of gangster he was, suggesting he might be the leader of a thug group. Angered, Jung Woo-hyun shouted, questioning how long Kang Hyun would remain defiant, and then commanded action against the MC. The surrounding people attempted to use magic to control Kang Hyun, but all efforts were neutralized. Jung Woo-hyun then loudly declared the group idiots and instructed them to kill Kang Hyun instead. As if on cue, someone arrived, allowing Kang Hyun to test his own magical abilities, which resulted in casualties among his assailants. Jung Woo-hyun, in a good mood, mocked the MC for trying to play it smart and called him delusional for thinking the guilt tactic would work on someone prepared to be killed. He sarcastically remarked on the MC's feigned ignorance despite imminent death. Suddenly, tentacles from the ground captured Kang Hyun, and Vice President Bait took this opportunity to stab and control him. Although externally praising everyone's efforts, Jung Woo-hyun internally cursed them all. He admired the MC's resilience despite severe injuries, something he acknowledged he lacked. Jung Woo-hyun approached Kang Hyun, asking if he had any last words, to which Kang Hyun quietly replied that no matter what dish he was served, it would always contain hair. The efforts to kill Kang Hyun had already cost over 30 lives, with about 50 others seriously injured. Jung Woo-hyun furiously scolded his group for the high cost caused by one man and ordered the vice president to clean up, noting that Kang Hyun's gear seemed valuable. All they could hope for now was to salvage what little they could. However, they soon realized Kang Hyun's body had disappeared. Simultaneously, at Kang Hyun's house, he received a resurrection notification, with his level decreased by 1 and all stats reduced by half for 24 hours. His sister, Kang Ah-hyen, complained about the recent peace being disrupted by yet another of his deaths. Just seeing her brother emerge from the bedroom was enough for Kang Ah-hyen to know what had happened. Kang Hyun, not blaming his sister, simply mentioned he was hungry and asked if she had anything to eat. His sister, Noticing the shoes he wore inside the house, angrily told him to take them off, reminding him that he had been told numerous times to remove his armor when resurrected. The siblings' argument echoed throughout the house. 2 days later, at Keka Canyon dungeon owned by the Bait Guild, two guards discussed the recent decrease in visitors to their dungeon. The rumors about the Bait Guild had spread across radar, deterring people who feared having their equipment stolen, unaware that their lives could also be at risk. While both guards were disheartened by the lack of visitors, a mysterious masked person approached. Kang Hyun, having recklessly entered the Bait Guild's territory, realized he was like a man throwing eggs against rocks. Although he had many lives, eggs to lose, he knew he couldn't keep paying the resurrection penalty. Consequently, Kang Hyun changed his tactics, storming each of the Bait Guild's dungeons one by one, eliminating each member. Back to the present, the two guards just realized that an unusual figure was approaching. Before they could insult the crazy person, they were beaten down, unable to retaliate. One begged for forgiveness. Kang Hyun asked what he was apologizing for, and the guard, not knowing what to say, was thrown to the ground. Kang Hyun ordered him to write down the locations of all other Bait Guild dungeons if he wanted to be spared. Satisfied with obtaining the remaining locations, Kang Hyun then questioned why, despite many murders, the guild had not yet been caught. He speculated whether it involved police bribery. The guard hesitantly suggested that might be the case. Unclear about the details of his superior's actions, he added that owning dungeons without nearby surveillance cameras also played a role. With all necessary information to avoid detection, Kang Hyun eliminated the guard, whispering, "Wait, you scum. Someone worse is coming soon." From that day, major news outlets were filled with information related to the Bait Guild. Jung Wei-hyun, reading the news, darkened an expression and furiously slammed the table. All of this chaos stemmed from dealing with a madman. The deputy head of the guild rushed in to report a serious problem. Jung Wei-hyun, already frustrated, found a target for his anger and threw a glass dish at him. The messenger bowed an apology and informed that the madman targeting the Bait Guild's dungeons had appeared again. The deputy estimated that 7 dungeons had been attacked and over 100 guild members had been killed. Jung Wei-hyun cursed, wondering who this person was to cause such turmoil at this time. As he deployed more people, the death toll only increased. Jung Wei-hyun decided that from now on, everyone must stay in the dungeons and there would be no shift changes, emphasizing that they must sleep in shifts. After the messenger left, Jung Wei-hyun sat down to analyze the situation. 5 days ago, Kang Hyun had attacked a dungeon and disappeared. 2 days later, a madman consistently targeted the Bait Guild's dungeons. It all became clear to Jung Wei-hyun. He had suspected it, but now the evidence was undeniable. Jung Wei-hyun concluded that MC must have accomplices and that the disappearance of his body was surely facilitated by some skill. However, currently lacking information made it impossible for him to plan a countermeasure. Reluctantly, Jung Wei-hyun picked up the phone and called someone. The person on the other end mocked him, asking if even a large guild like Bait needed help. He pretended to recall the recent decimation of Bait's teams. The person agreed to help Jung Wei-hyun for the sake of an interesting battle, confirming that the suspect was not ordinary. Yu Seong promised not to disappoint him and then hung up. That very evening, the mission began with Il-woo participating. Yu Seong questioned how powerful the mysterious person was, needing assurance that he would appear tonight. Yu Seong warned that if Il-woo waited in vain, he would face consequences. No sooner had Yu Seong finished speaking than Kang Hyun arrived. Yu Seong's senses reacted strongly to the person before him. It was usually just a vague intuition, but this time it screamed in his head, warning him to stay away from that monster if he didn't want to die. Before Yu Seong could react, the masked person shockingly asked why he was there. Yu Seong easily recognized the voice as that of his schoolmate Kang Hyun. Yu Seong opens his eyes wide and asks Kang Hyun why he is here. Then he realizes that the person who has been visiting the dungeon of the Bait Guild these past days was him. Yu Seong laughs loudly, noting that he always engages in interesting antics. At this moment, Kang Hyun is preoccupied, recalling a soldier's words about someone backing the Bait Guild. Thinking about it, Yu Seong is quite wealthy, and he suspects that he might be the one backing the guild. Kang Hyun then asks Yu Seong if he is also a member of the Bait Guild. Yu Seong, with Kang Hyun's sword at his throat, shows no intention of responding. He stands there calmly, expressing his disappointment at being associated with what Kang Hyun describes as trash. He then questions what people would think of him if rumors spread. Confused, Kang Hyun asks why he is here. Yu Seong explains it's because of Jung Wei-hyun. He finds it interesting that someone as arrogant as him would ask for his help. Kang Hyun decides to overlook the matter, wanting to continue with his own plans. He tells Yu Seong not to get in his way and that they should have a meal together sometime. Yu Seong, feeling slighted, thinks how absurd it is to make such plans when they don't even have each other's phone numbers. Suddenly, he attacks Kang Hyun from behind. Yu Seong says if he just walks away, it would make him sad, and suggests they fight instead. Kang Hyun, now serious, responds to Yu Seong. Soon he notices that Yu Seong's strength has increased significantly. He wants to see how much stronger Yu Seong has become. Kang Hyun is not in the mood to enjoy this fight, as it is disrupting his plans and needs to end quickly. However, he admits that it has been a long time since he had such an engaging battle. As the two are earnestly competing, Il-woo, eager to prove himself, interrupts them. Yu Seong swings his hand, killing him because he was interfering with their fun. At this point, Kang Hyun finally concludes that they are not allies, but he is more shocked that Yu Seong would act so rashly. Yu Seong then turns and says he's lost interest and doesn't want to fight anymore. He really wanted a proper fight with MC, but now he can't even if he wanted to. Yu Seong suddenly says he doesn't want Kang Hyun to dislike him. Perhaps he doesn't know that Kang Hyun has disliked him for a long time. Yu Seong then asks if he knows what kind of person Jung Woo-hyun is. He is the illegitimate child of a major corporation's chairman, which is why those scoundrels dare to behave so arrogantly. Kang Hyun, uninterested, asks Yu Seong what he wants and whether he is suggesting that he should stop. MC firmly states that if he were afraid, he wouldn't have started any of this in the first place. He then turns his back and walks into the dungeon, not forgetting to tell Yu Seong not to bother him anymore. Yu Seong follows Kang Hyun, wanting to join in this challenge. He also wants to see the angry expression on Jung Woo-hyun's arrogant face. The next day, Jung Woo-hyun receives news that 3 more dungeons have been lost. Worse yet, there is no longer any contact with Yu Seong. He flips a table and curses at a bunch of incompetents. He orders the vice president to summon all guild members to the office at 8 a.m. the next day. The vice president is troubled, not knowing how many members he can actually gather. Jung Woo-hyun angrily orders that even if they are sick or have family issues, they must be summoned. The vice president patiently explains that recently many people have left the guild and some have even cut off contact. Jung Woo-hyun, provoked at any cost, wants to capture people back even if it means kidnapping or threatening them to make the members listen. The vice president adds that the current atmosphere within the guild is not very good. With so many members leaving recently, it would be very awkward if they continue to threaten the members. At this very moment, Jung Woo-hyun receives a call from Yu Seong. He is pleased, thinking things might be easier than he expected. Kang Hyun, on the other hand, is very satisfied with what they have accomplished over the past few days. Negative comments on social media cursing the Bait Guild have increased without any sign of decrease. Currently, just continuing to raid dungeons for a week will suffice. As everything is about to end, Yu Seong feels both happy and sad. He wants to know how Kang Hyun plans to end this. Kang Hyun does not hesitate to let him know. He uses the same method Jung Woo-hyun once used to threaten him, arranging a meeting. Jung Woo-hyun, furious, crumples the letter in his hand. He shouts, "Now wanting to fight, right?" He leads all the remaining members of the guild to the meeting point. Jung Woo-hyun wants to see the arrogant face of that person and then break his bones and skin him. The members today again do not want to appear and join him, but due to the fear of the guild leader's dirty tricks, they reluctantly set out. Hearing the cursing and gossip behind him, Jung Woo-hyun inwardly curses, wondering why he brought such a group with him. He deeply regrets not being able to persuade Yu Seong. Otherwise, things would be different now. Previously, when he received a call from Yu Seong asking about the situation, he was extremely smug. He even set aside his daily pride to ask for help. However, to his surprise, he received a response from the other party changing their mind and refusing to help him anymore. Afterwards, they even taunted him to keep clinging to his great father. Now he feels that both Yu Seong and the mysterious man are equally despicable. He wants to see how long this arrogant bunch can keep up their facade. Meanwhile, Choi Min-jun closely monitors Jung Woo-hyun's situation. He learns that the Bait Guild has summoned all its members and seems to be at a breaking point. Someone questions whether they, being allies on the outside, really don't plan to send support. Choi Min-jun responds that whether it's necessary or not is irrelevant, as supporting that bunch of trash is a waste of effort. However, if Jung Woo-hyun truly dies, Chairman Jung Sang-soo won't let it go unchecked. Hearing this, Choi Min-jun confronts the person, asking if he really needs to rely on him to live. The person keeps apologizing for their mistake. Choi Min-jun leaves the room as if nothing happened, not forgetting to instruct him to continue working and look into new financial sources. Back at the Disrufin Level D dungeon, Jung Woo-hyun leads the Bait Guild inside. He asks someone nearby what time it is and curses under his breath. Clearly, he had sent his signal but sees no sign of his person returning with information. Jung Woo-hyun tells everyone to be ready to fight, not knowing how many enemies there are and if there might be an ambush. The guild vice president just reminds Jung Woo-hyun to be wary of the chaos ahead. Unexpectedly, they encounter Kang Hyun. He softly asks if it's a twin. Jung Woo-hyun is surprised to see him alive. On the other side, MC greets him, saying it has been a long time and then loudly declares he has a gift for him. He pulls out an adorable baby wolf. The opposing group immediately recognizes it as the offspring of Disrufin. Kang Hyun doesn't keep them waiting and presses on. They don't forget to curse him for being heartless, able to throw such a cute animal. Everyone rushes to catch the animal. Jung Woo-hyun, standing at the front, loudly tells them to shut up because he has realized the problem. A pack of Disrafin, enraged and out of control due to the loss of their young, is charging towards them. From the other side, Kang Hyun continues to throw a bag full of wolf pups. The clueless crowd rushes to grab them and is immediately surrounded by the adult wolves. Dealing with Disrafin is difficult due to their ability to become invisible. With Kang Hyun's involvement, the formation becomes even more chaotic. Jung Hyun, struggling to contain his anger, orders everyone to quickly retreat from the dungeon. Those at the back quickly run ahead, internally vowing to leave the guild the following day. Unexpectedly, Yu Seong appears from behind them, blocking their escape route. Maces were swung inadvertently, leading to constant cries for help from the members of the Bait Guild. At that moment, Jung Hyun was still questioning whether Yu Seong had betrayed him. However, he was certain there was still a way out. As he watched the guild members fall one by one, Jung Hyun resorted to his last strategy. Meanwhile, on the other side, Kang Hyun was tirelessly slashing at others, muttering that they were as persistent as a never-ending stream of enemies. Suddenly, MC heard his name being called. Jung Hyun, ablaze with fury, charged towards the side. He loudly declared that even if it were to end, he must at least have MC as his companion. Everyone near Jung Hyun was engulfed by his flames. Not only that, but his skill with overwhelming firepower put his own life in grave danger. However, he believed that this method would also pull Kang Hyun into peril. Kang Hyun, emerging from the fire with his face scorched, questioned Jung Hyun if it was worth risking his life for that much. The flames on him gradually extinguished, just like his hopes. Jung Hyun told him to just sit back because he would be dealt with last. Despite being severely battered, he wouldn't let him leave easily. MC announced that he would let him witness the final moments of the Bait Guild's minions. Jung Hyun laughed loudly, declaring that it was all over. Everything ended because he had messed with someone he shouldn't have. His laughter grew louder, echoing everywhere. Around was a scene filled with the blood of the Bait Guild. Yu Seong approached, laughing loudly, asking him what he was laughing at. Kang Hyun, with his last bit of humanity, asked him to leave Jung Hyun alone as he might be dreaming a beautiful dream. Jung Hyun refused to accept such an ending. He was an illegitimate child, a bastard, an outcast. His siblings treated him no differently than a stranger. They didn't care for him. They despised him. Thus, Jung Hyun was dragged into fights for a position he never cared for. Consequently, they took control over him. His father pitied him and provided for him, but that only gave them another reason to attack him. Until one day, the world changed. The guide began, and with the appearance of dungeons and the awakened, the world returned to the logic of primal strength. At that moment, Jung Hyun sensed that this was his chance to turn the tables. Kang Hyun lost his patience and fatally stabbed Jung Hyun with a sword. Yu Seong reproached him, saying that he should have listened to the last words of a dying man. Kang Hyun questioned why he should listen. Realizing everything had ended, MC commented that he had been through a lot. Yu Seong replied nonchalantly, stating that it made him happy. He wondered what MC felt after having avenged a long-held grudge. Honestly, Kang Hyun didn't know either. The end of his revenge felt empty. After all, the one who deserved to die was now dead. If he had to compare, it was like the feeling of thoroughly cleaning a large amount of earwax from inside the ear canal. Not a big deal, but still relieving. Yu Seong asked him to stop making comparisons. Kang Hyun looked at the scattered equipment around and wondered how to deal with it. He suggested selling it and splitting the money. Yu Seong responded that he didn't need those things, nor was he short of money. Upon hearing about money, Kang Hyun reflected that from the beginning until now, he hadn't been too concerned about money. The rewards from completing dungeons were sufficient to make him feel secure. However, the recent events had made him realize that he couldn't protect everything just with his strength and the little money he had. MC reminded himself that he needed to start saving money and even consider building his own power base. He looked at Yu Seong and asked if he would join if he formed a guild. Yu Seong interrupted, saying that if it were a guild formed by him, it would definitely be interesting. He felt that way. Kang Hyun smiled contentedly but still wanted to tease. He asked Yu Seong what he felt, adding that he hadn't said he would let him join. Yu Seong exclaimed that he had just heard the recruitment news. He knew everything. At that time, no one knew that a small guild formed by two men as a joke would become a notorious guild throughout South Korea, albeit negatively. At the office of Choi Min-jun, Jung Sang-soo came to ask if everything had not changed already. He had accepted the responsibility to take care of Choi's son, Jung Hyun. Choi emphasized that he had violated the contract. Choi Min-jun calmly asked how he had violated it, saying the chairman was joking too much. He added that he didn't know what Choi was talking about. Jung Sang-soo became enraged and shouted, questioning how Choi Min-jun could pretend to be unaware now. It had been a week since his son and other members of the Bait Guild had lost contact, and it was clear from the current situation that they were in danger. Choi Min-jun interrupted him, asking what exactly he wanted from him. Jung Sang-soo was taken aback by the question and had responded before Choi Min-jun continued speaking. He accused Jung Sang-soo having supported an incompetent person to lead a guild. justifying his actions with the money he had received. Angered, Jung Sang-soo ordered everyone to attack Choi Min-jun immediately, but before anyone could touch him, they were all countered. He reminded the chairman that they had a contract and he had fulfilled what was agreed upon. Choi Min-jun stood up, approached Jung Sang-soo, and questioned why he was starting trouble today. He warned him that if such an incident happened again, he would not let it go. Frightened, Jung Sang-soo acknowledged his understanding. Jung Sang-soo returned to his seat as if nothing had happened, continuing to smile and noting that it was fortunate the chairman understood. He wanted to receive the money that had been promised before today, although he didn't show it. Choi Min-jun was also curious about who had ultimately brought down Jung Wei-hyun. The bait guild had completely vanished, and the sudden disappearance of a major guild had spawned numerous rumors and eerie stories. The media had buzzed about it for a long time. However, in a context where new guilds and abilities were emerging daily, the bait guild was increasingly being forgotten. Kang Hyun, reading the news on his phone, exclaimed that it was good that their actions had been traced. Yu Seong affirmed that there would be no consequences left as he had dealt with all the troublemakers. This time, they could even level up after the battle and the equipment they had gathered had been disposed of. They were even enjoying a good meal now. Seeing Kang Hyun's displeased expression made Yu Seong extremely curious. He asked Kang Hyun why he was upset since everything seemed to be fine. Kang Hyun confessed that the new title he had acquired was the problem. The title he referred to as the Merciless Family Destroyer. Although it enhanced his strength, it also increased hostility. The bearer of this title would instill a primal fear in others. Lately, Kang Hyun has been under a lot of stress due to this title, which has led to more misunderstandings. Yu Seong laughed loudly, saying that there was no need to worry about being misunderstood as Kang Hyun was already notorious. He reassured him that there was no difference and told him not to worry. At this moment, Kang Hyun received a call from Officer Kim A-yeon. He asked MC if he remembered their previous promise regarding a meeting with the head of the Dangan Guild. The officer mentioned that the matter was urgent and hoped Kang Hyun would come immediately. Shortly thereafter, both Kang Hyun and Yu Seong were present at the Dangan Guild. Kang Hyun asked Officer Kim if it was okay to bring him along, to which Kim A-yeon replied that the guild head had permitted it, so there was no need to worry. Yu Seong then mentioned that he was acquainted with Se-yeon. They had met previously at a social gathering. Thinking about the social gathering, Kang Hyun concluded that being a guild head must be very lucrative, especially since he had also graduated from the tutorial school, prompting MC to lament that the world was truly unfair. After leading them to the guest room to meet Se-yeon, Kim A-yeon left. Kang Hyun initially thanked the guild head for her assistance, admitting he did not know how to repay her. Se-yeon thought it was not a big deal and told him not to worry about it. Kang Hyun insisted he did not want to owe anything. Furthermore, he suggested that her calling them there must have a purpose. Se-yeon directly asked Kang Hyun if he wanted to join Dangun. Like before, Kang Hyun bluntly replied that he did not want to. Se-yeon asked why he didn't want to join their guild, to which Kang Hyun simply responded that he didn't like it. Yu Seong, sitting beside him, teased that he should be careful not to cut himself. The MC, puzzled, asked if they had any opinions. Se-yeon laughed it off, saying it was actually easier for her to give up since he was so clear about it. Kang Hyun reiterated that he would duly repay her kindness nonetheless. He mentioned that if the Dangan Guild ever needed help, he would still be ready to assist. Se-yeon told him not to worry, as having a connection with someone as strong as him meant there was no loss for them. She promised to ask for help when necessary. The MC pondered for a while and then questioned whether the nation's #1 guild really needed someone like him. Kang Hyun said that he would certainly help if possible, although he had some doubts. Suddenly, Se-yeon asked Kang Hyun how long he thought the current peace would last. With dungeons appearing and crime rampant, it was difficult to answer the peace question. The MC wondered if she had seen the world as he had seen it in the 8th Dimension Guide. Although the world was still peaceful, it couldn't compare to a world filled with monsters. Kang Hyun thought deeply but merely responded that he didn't know. Moreover, that wasn't an issue he could solve. Either way, the MC becoming stronger was the only solution. Kang Hyun reminded Se-yeon that there were still 5 years left until what was called the Haken Dimension. Se-yeon whispered that it was actually 3 years. She was sure that some nations would face danger within the next 3 years. Their remaining time was also not much. Kang Hyun, astonished, asked her how she could be so sure. Se-yeon couldn't explain clearly, but mentioned that this was information from a divine entity. Kang Hyun, reminded of the entity that had granted him power, realized that someone in Se-yeon's camp could communicate with this divine entity. Se-yeon asked Kang Hyun if he really felt it, with the increasing difficulty of dungeons, while the development of ability users was stagnating. Contrary to expectations, Kang Hyun didn't feel it. Yu Seong, sitting beside them, mentioned that the more reckless the ability users were, the stronger they became. Therefore, hunting with guns was ineffective. Kang Hyun realized that he had never seen ability users using guns because of this reason. Yu Seong added that bows differed from guns as they could be upgraded along with their levels. Kang Hyun felt that there seemed to be too many theories. Seiyeon agreed, stating that only strong and daring people like the MC could handle the current situation. Kang Hyun had the potential to become a hero. However, Kang Hyun refused, confessing that he really wasn't a good person. He also believed she knew about how he had dealt with all the members of the Bait Guild. The MC was surprised to hear Seiyeon say that those scumbags didn't matter. After all, they were useless for the survival of humanity and not worth protecting. For humanity, a person like Kang Hyun was more important than hundreds of such individuals. She emphasized that the protectors of the world were not gentlemen but the strong. The conversation concluded with teacher Kim Aeon tasked with seeing the two off. He confirmed they had boarded the vehicle before returning to Seiyeon's office. The teacher wanted to know Seiyeon's impressions from her direct meeting with Kang Hyun. Seiyeon responded that he exceeded her expectations. Although it was just a brief moment when she mentioned the story about management, the MC's verb shook. She could affirm that Kang Hyun had completed the guide. The difference between D and E-level dungeons was just a letter, but the gap between them was immense. The strength and number of monsters increased. The most noticeable difference was the diversity of monsters appearing inside the dungeons, especially in the D-level Dian's laboratory, where the diversity of monsters was at its maximum. According to Kang Hyun, normal monsters, whether regular or boss, were of the same species, so it was quite comfortable to fight. However, the vast number of monsters here was troublesome. Their weaknesses and attack methods were completely different. Today, for the first time in the dungeon, he encountered a monster that was both an ogre and a chimera. Its body ratio was much larger than Kang Hyun's. He muttered to himself that it was an ogre with a goblin's head attached. The MC asked if he wanted to join his guild. Earlier, he had made a bet with Yu Seong about who would find a candidate to join the guild first. But the monster did not understand human language. Seeing that Kang Hyun was not attacking, the creature struck first. After the hit, Kang Hyun casually said he didn't like it, but the hammer used just now wasn't up to standard. A single punch from the MC then made the monster vomit everything out. The MC continued to strike a few more blows, but the monster's skin was thicker than he thought, and its body was larger. Kang Hyun, refusing to admit defeat, jokingly said he might not have a large physique, but he was someone who used his mind to always find answers for himself. He identified that if he could take the creature's hammer weapon, it would no longer have anything to attack with, making it easier to defeat. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Kang Hyun wasn't the only one battling. Another group was present. They heard the monster's terrible screams, but the boss of the group didn't care, assuming it was just someone hunting. He thought they should only focus on the feast before them. They laughed loudly, looking at a girl holding a weapon towards them, which was another reason they liked the dungeon. Someone next to the boss asked if he heard something approaching, but the boss was not in the mood to care about hunting at that time. Suddenly, Kang Hyun approached and quietly remarked that they stank. It was unmistakably the smell of lowlifes, degenerates, and petty criminals deserving to be defeated. They noticed the large hammer, much bigger than Kang Hyun's body, being dragged by him. They looked at each other, wondering if the MC was actually wielding the hammer. Without further words, Kang Hyun charged at the group. The boss picked up a small knife and asked Kang Hyun if he was crazy. Who would swing a hammer in such a cramped space? Before he could continue, a hammer was swung right next to where he stood. Kang Hyun growled softly and then threw the hammer aside. It was really too heavy to be used as a primary weapon. Kang Hyun reconsidered and decided to stash it away in his dimensional storage bag. The boss, not yet aware of his own peril, provocatively laughed loudly, mocking Kang Hyun's display of strength as if it was something fearsome. He even thought that Kang Hyun wasn't aware of his own situation. He picked up a weapon to attack, reminding the MC that this was not the time to put down the weapon. But his foolish act made him the first to be killed. Kang Hyun warned the despicable criminals to bring out everything they had. Naturally, he didn't surrender easily and all charged at the MC together, thinking he was alone. Kang Hyun grabbed the head of the nearest one and asked if they didn't see he was holding a hostage. He paused to ask the man his name. After he kindly asked, Yusik said he would take revenge on his behalf. However, Kang Hyun's method of revenge was peculiar, leaving them no time to react. One moment, Jusik was being asked his name, and the next, he became a weapon in Kang Hyun's hands. After beating a few of them, Kang Hyun loudly praised the satisfying feeling of the fight. He called for them all to come at once, declaring he would face them with his new weapon. Thus, a group of people was easily defeated. After the fight, the MC looked around and thought if this was what a D-level dungeon assault team was like, it was a waste of time. The girl who was rescued stepped forward to thank Kang Hyun for his help, saying that she could have been in danger without him. Kang Hyun honestly replied it was nothing, and he actually quite enjoyed beating them up. The girl named Shin Seo-nga wanted to know how she could become as strong as him. Kang Hyun asked the girl if she was inquiring about how to become stronger. He could only advise her to be diligent. Shin Seo-nga thought to herself that she had already been diligent, hadn't she? The MC noticed her thoughts and mentioned that not all efforts are the same. It has to be an effort to the point of death. The essence of the effort lies in these very words. Shin Seo-nga looked at him, puzzled, really to the point of death. Kang Hyun reflected that the words of someone who had died numerous times and resurrected, like himself, indeed seemed quite unreasonable. He then felt foolish and wanted to continue his quest to conquer the dungeon. Before disappearing, Kang Hyun mentioned that whether to spare or kill the enemies was now up to her. Moving to a secluded corner, Kang Hyun worriedly asked her if she could go on by herself. Normally, the other party would beg for help, so Kang Hyun said on his own that he really wanted to help her, but he couldn't at the moment because he needed to clear this level. Shin Seo-lenga tentatively asked if she could accompany him then. Kang Hyun thought the girl believed his statement about dying, so he told her to forget it. It wouldn't be good if she really died. Shin Seo-lenga interrupted him, saying no, she knew her limits and wanted to accompany him to mine demon spirit stones and would definitely not cause any trouble. All the demon spirit stones mined would belong to him. Kang Hyun warned her about the dangers along the way. However, Shin Seo-lenga did not give up, confident she could protect herself. Finally, with no reason left to refuse, Kang Hyun agreed to let Shin Seo-lenga accompany him. True to her promise, throughout their journey, she stayed behind and helped Kang Hyun mine demon spirit stones. The MC noted that the girl could protect herself as she had promised. It was unclear whether she had a stealth skill or not, but whenever a battle started, she quickly moved to the back. Occasionally, she even supported Kang Hyun with a bow and arrow, but never caused any hindrance. Moreover, she helped him gather all the cumbersome demon spirit stones from the monsters. Thus, the conquest of the dungeon this time became much easier. Suddenly, Kang Hyun spoke up, sensing from the aura ahead that it seemed to be the boss. From now on, it could be very dangerous. Shin Seo-lenga understood what he was about to say next and responded that she had already determined to accompany him. At that moment, both received a notification that the dungeon's core had been destroyed and the exit gate had opened. Kang Hyun thought that someone had arrived before them. Shortly after, he realized something was amiss. He still felt the presence of the dungeon boss, which led him to conclude that it must be a rift. The television then reported that for the first time in South Korea, a D-class dungeon rift incident occurred. Dozens of dungeons in Seoul opened simultaneously, causing a phenomenon known as the monster wave. Following the dungeon opening event in February and the Rae Cave blockade incident, this was the third such incident in the country. However, this wave was different from the previous events. Analysts speculated that this was a deliberate act of terrorism. The Superhuman Alliance, led by Choi Dang-woo, also received news of the rift. According to recent reports, among the affected dungeons was a significant one. Choi Dang-woo asked his assistant for its location. Surprisingly, it was Daeun's laboratory in Suwon. He wondered why it was there. Since it was a complex dungeon, its destruction had been delayed, not thinking that such an incident would happen now. Choi Dang-woo further inquired if there was any guild nearby. The assistant replied that currently, only the Hangail Guild was nearby, but reportedly, their key forces were away on business. Understanding the situation, he immediately planned to deploy 50 elite soldiers to Suwon, while other teams would head to different dungeons. The Dungeon Guild also quickly grasped the situation. Kim Il-yen received information that guild leader Choi Dong-woo would personally participate in the Daeun's laboratory operation. He was currently on his way there with an elite troop. Se-yeon commented that it was too late. She wanted to know if there were any other guilds nearby that could ensure defense. Kim Il-yen responded that apart from the Hangail Guild, there were only small and medium guilds. However, there was another piece of information about a superhuman handling monsters very quickly. Choi Il-yen smiled when he read about a giant long sword and a large body, mentioning a fierce face. Se-yeon turned around and smiled, saying that if that was the case, there was no need to worry about that side. Both knew exactly who they were thinking of. Meanwhile, Kang Hyun continued to face the horde of monsters alone. The Awakeners present there could only exclaim that Kang Hyun was insane. He was handling them all by himself. They whispered that he was a true superhuman. As the smaller monsters were finally killed off, a few individuals stepped forward to thank Kang Hyun for saving their lives. However, Kang Hyun did not accept their gratitude and loudly told them to leave. Seeing the surprised faces of those around him, he repeated sternly to leave immediately, or they would be the next ones to lose their lives. The rift had not yet closed and the final boss was still alive, posing a danger to anyone remaining. Kang Hyun, uncharacteristically patient, explained to the people behind him that if they stayed, they would die because the final boss had not yet appeared. One person, after understanding the situation, approached Kang Hyun. He mentioned that everyone there was a superhuman and even a little help could assist him. Kang Hyun bluntly interrupted, asking if the man had managed to catch even one chimera. Kang Hyun, fully aware that not even one person among the group had managed to catch a chimera, let alone assist, was not shy to let them know that their staying would only be a hindrance. If they understood what he was saying, they should quickly evacuate the civilians. The people, discontent with his manner of speaking, questioned amongst themselves what was wrong with the MC, questioning why he spoke in such a manner. No matter how strong he was, it wasn't right. But they couldn't dare stay any longer when they saw Kang Hyun's face becoming increasingly fierce with anger. As everyone else left, only Shin Seo-lenga remained, looking embarrassed. Shin Seo-myo was about to ask if she should follow them when Kang Hyun asked her if she could handle protecting him from behind. He then instructed her to find somewhere to hide. Seeing the hesitant look on her face, Kang Hyun looked at her again and asked if she could do it. Upon receiving her affirmative answer, he turned away. Before the MC now were 4 extremely large monsters. He whispered, wondering if they were the 4 heavenly kings, but then dismissed the thought, as they were not on the same level as the ORG he had just fought. Moreover, the final boss had appeared. The Lich observed the surrounding buildings, noting the unique architecture. His gaze then fell on Kang Hyun. The monster Lich asked him if he planned to defeat it alone. The MC confirmed, then raised his sword, ready for the battle. Kang Hyun expressed his desire to smash the Lich's head and then put it back together like a puzzle. The Lich, despite being just a monster, couldn't tolerate Kang Hyun's arrogance. It scolded humans for their arrogance, but found the MC's body useful, declaring its intention to subjugate him personally. Kang Hyun interrupted, saying enough, and challenged the Lich to a fair duel. He suggested that the Lich dismiss its minions so that the 2 of them could fight honorably, like 2 real men. After some thought, the Lich refused. Kang Hyun laughed loudly, having expected nothing less from a monster. He then looked at the 3 minions of the Lich and shouted for them to come at him. As they approached, he activated the spirit of a raging lion to attack. Firstly, the MC targeted the one in the middle with a large hammer he had recently acquired in the dungeon. With just 1 move, he brought down the first minion. Meanwhile, the Lich took this opportunity to evaluate Kang Hyun. It could not sense any magical power from him. It was unclear if this was the pure strength that Kang Hyun possessed. However, the Lich thought it would be a pity if Kang Hyun were to just die. It planned to control the MC and turn him into a slave. The second monster was defeated and the hammer in Kang Hyun's hand became heavier. As Kang Hyun had already expended a considerable amount of energy, the monster Lich attempted to use a mind control technique on him. Lich was confident that this move would put MC under his control. Lich laughed loudly, welcoming his new slave, and ordered him to bow his head to show loyalty. Contrary to expectations, after bowing, Kang Hyun raised his middle finger at him. Thanks to a ring that resisted all mind control techniques, Kang Hyun broke free from Lich's recent move. By the time Lich realized that MC was protected by an artifact, it was too late. His plan was to capture Kang Hyun intact, but unfortunately, things did not go as planned. It was then MC's turn to counterattack using the skin of Antria. Seizing the opportunity, Shin Seo-hunga also provided support by shooting arrows from behind at the opponent. Lich soared high, searching for MC's teammates. Below, Kang Hyun reminded Shin Seo-hunga of the perfect moment to strike. Kang Hyun laughed loudly, seizing the rare opportunity to attack the opponent. However, due to a mishap, he was impaled by the tail of a lizard monster. This incident caused MC to become thoroughly enraged, using all of his remaining strength to kill the last minion. He laughed loudly at the Lich monster still flying above, now alone. Kang Hyun provocatively laughed, mocking the last bald one. The final boss, Lich, angrily called him arrogant. Lich realized that MC was now a mage running low on magical power, yet still wanting to confront him. Kang Hyun did not expect to be discovered so soon. Indeed, he was losing magical power, and his body's regeneration was nearing its limit. Moreover, MC truly no longer had the strength to fight him in the air. He no longer had the energy to jump or float. Kang Hyun wished he could use the strength of a giant at that moment. Suddenly, a severe pain from his heart caused Kang Hyun to collapse on the ground. He wondered what had just happened. The Lich monster laughed loudly, finally realizing. He informed MC that the attack just now was not a normal one. Having finally had the opportunity to attack Kang Hyun's inner body, there was no reason not to use poison. The monster Lich declared that MC no longer had a chance to win. He promised to give him an antidote if he obediently became a slave. Kang Hyun angrily cursed. He repeated his initial promise to crush its skull and create a 3D model of it. MC used all of his remaining magical power to detoxify himself and resorted to his last resort, the Sword of Biljane, which increased his strength and stamina by 1.5 times for 5 minutes. However, his judgment would become impaired and have serious consequences during use. MC shouted loudly, calling the villain to hurry up and come at him, saying they would die together if necessary. He declared he would be responsible for sending him to the underworld. Just then, Choi Dong-woo arrived in time to tell Kang Hyun that it was enough. He said that although he did not know who MC was, he had done something extraordinary. From now on, this matter would be handled by the Alliance of the Capable. Kang Hyun knew he was Choi Dong-woo, the chairman of the Capable Alliance. Choi Dong-woo emphasized again that Kang Hyun's injuries were severe and that he should rest. Kang Hyun did not want to agree, but at this moment he no longer had the strength to go on. He knelt on the ground, silently cursing that he had almost caught him. Choi Dong-woo's appearance was indeed spectacularly useless. When Kang Hyun woke up again, he was in the hospital. Seeing his sister sitting beside him, teasing that he had to see an annoying face as soon as he woke up, Kang Hyun retorted, newly awake and already barking what? She took out her phone and silently calculating how much money her brother's hospitalization had cost this time. Kang Hyun disagreed with being mocked by his sister as soon as he woke up. Recalling the events before he fainted, he asked her about the Berserker dungeon. Kang Hyun was not sure, but it seemed that everything had been settled well. His sister added that he would not know how shocked she was. When she heard her brother was hospitalized, she came immediately. Right then, she saw the person she only saw on TV, the chairman of the Capable Alliance. Kang Hyun thought about the chairman of the Capable Alliance. He felt he already owed him without having to think about it. At that moment, his sister's scolding brought him back to reality. She scolded that although he had special abilities, what if he really died? MC sighed. Indeed, his sister was not wrong, but did she think dying was easy? He whispered that it's bad enough to deal with such moods, who likes dying anyway. But in the end, he agreed with his sister that he would try harder next time. At the office of the chairman of the Capable Alliance, the assistant asked if Kang Hyun was someone Choi Dong-woo knew personally. Choi Dong-woo replied that he was not. He had heard the report that the assistant had contacted Kang Hyun. The assistant, no longer hiding his curiosity, directly asked why Choi Dong-woo was the one who took MC to the hospital and even paid the hospital bills. Choi Dong-woo laughed heartily, responding that he witnessed the birth of a hero. If not at that time, then when else would he have the honor to assist someone like that? In Choi Dong-woo's mind were the reckless words of Kang Hyun about living for the sake of fighting monsters. Unfortunately, Lich had escaped after the recent battle. Kang Hyun's medical tests revealed nothing unusual. The doctor had to remark that a capable person indeed recovers very quickly. Kang Hyun and his sister left the hospital. He complained that he could have been discharged the day before. Kang Hyun asked her brother why he was grumbling so much. After all, the Alliance was the one paying the hospital bills. Kang Hyun asked his sister if she knew how much he lost per day. At that moment, a nurse behind them responded to someone that there was no patient named Kang Hyun. The person continued to ask the nurse if that was really so. The nurse confirmed that if he had been discharged, then his records wouldn't be accessible. The man sighed, thinking it was too late, but when he turned around, he unexpectedly found the person he was looking for. Kang Hyun asked the man what he wanted with him, as he had just heard his name being called. The man named Taejil handed him a business card from the special management team of the Administrative Safety Bureau. Kang Hyun, puzzled, asked what the government wanted with him. Taejil took MC to a restaurant to talk. Looking at the food on the table, Kang Hyun hesitated to start eating and asked if everything was really okay, knowing the restaurant was extremely expensive. Once the other party confirmed that there was no issue, he relaxed and began to eat. Kang Hyun jokingly commented that this is how he gets his tax money back. MC then asked if Taejil was suggesting he join the government. Taejil clarified that it was not coercion, but merely a proposal. Kang Hyun wondered what was interesting about becoming a civil servant. Understanding his thoughts, Taejil explained that they were not just any civil servants. To cope with future uncertainties, the nation had established an organization, specifically the Special Management Team, because the government had determined that controlling individuals with abilities was an infeasible task, especially as their numbers were increasing. It was not only impossible to control them through force, but confronting them was also unbeneficial. Therefore, the government decided to establish an organization based on mutual support rather than confrontation, aiming to maximize this support. Upon hearing this, Kang Hyun inquired about the benefits he would receive if he joined. Taejil outlined the benefits, starting with financial support. The government would provide sufficient funding to ensure he faced no difficulties during his activities. Additionally, if any safety issues occurred to him, the government would take lifelong responsibility for his family, ensuring treatment equivalent to that of a national hero. Kang Hyun acknowledged that the government's offer was very favorable, but he was sure it would involve a lot of work. Taejil didn't deny this, but added that the government would not make any unreasonable or unjust demands of him. He would simply need to continue his current lifestyle and only appear when requested for help. Previously, the leader of the Capable Alliance, Choi Dong-woo, and the head of the Dangdun Society, San-si Hyen, had also collaborated with the government. With such favorable conditions, MC decided to give it a try. In Gyeonggi-do Suwon, near the old Daeon's research area, Kang Hyun once again went there to retrieve his car parked before the battle. He was unsure whether the car was still intact after all the trouble. Unexpectedly, Kang Hyun ran into Shin Seo-nga. She handed over all the magic stones she had collected inside MC's dungeon. She apologized for not giving them to him sooner, but he had fainted and had to be rushed to emergency care. Kang Hyun was astonished and asked if she had been waiting here just to return these items, not knowing if he would come back. Upon hearing her confirmation, Kang Hyun inwardly cursed. He told her to keep them, but Shin Seo-nga refused, prompting Kang Hyun to take the bag and continue searching for his car. As he walked away, his name was called again. Turning around, he saw Shin Seo-nga bowing toward him. She asked if he could take her as his disciple. At the same time, inside the F-level Kirka-Birank dungeon, Lich sat fearfully under a dry tree, looking extremely pitiful. Lich Daeon's, the D-level dungeon boss, had never imagined being cornered by a mere human. Somehow, Choi Min-jun had tracked him down to his hiding spot. His provocation seemed unworthy of a final dungeon boss like Lich. When Lich heard someone accurately call his name, he immediately became wary and asked who Choi Min-jun was. Choi Min-jun told him not to be on guard as he was not an enemy but had come to liberate him. Following that, Choi Min-jun made a proposal for cooperation. Kang Hyun agrees to Shin Seo-inga's request and then takes her to meet Yu Seong. He teases that he thought Kang Hyun would never manage to recruit members since he has no friends. Angry, the MC asks what he means by that, questioning the kid, who said, "I don't have friends, at least Kang Hyun has a friend or two." After saying this, he reconsiders whether it's true or not. Regardless, the MC has already won the bet on recruiting members. Overjoyed, Kang Hyun declares that Yu Seong will pay for today's meal. Reluctantly, Yu Seong laughs and admits he always ends up paying and acknowledges his loss in the bet. However, Shin Seo-inga must pass a test to join the members. Yu Seong suggests that they now head to the dungeon together. Shin Seo-inga agrees as she has no issues with that. Kang Hyun, sitting next to her, thinks he is doing this because he just wants to go hunting. Together, they go to the Harpy Rock D-level dungeon. After receiving support from Shin Seo-inga from behind, Yu Seong admits that long-range damage really makes a difference and balances the team better. Kang Hyun pointedly asks Yu Seong how he feels about it. Naturally, Yu Seong agrees to let her join. The MC sighs there's no real test for Shin Seo-inga. He just wants to go hunting. Shin Seo-inga does not stay to argue with them, but goes off to gather magic stones on her own. Kang Hyun tells her not to bother too much with it if it causes her inconvenience. Shin Seo-inga replies it's okay. She enjoys doing it. Yu Seong interjects, reminding Kang Hyun that it's still money. He shouldn't waste it since he's not yet wealthy. The MC retorts, "Who says I don't have money?" But gathering the stones is more beneficial. He looks at Yu Seong again and asks why he doesn't go pick them up. Unable to hold back, Yu Seong curses the unpleasant guy. Suddenly, Kang Hyun becomes serious, stands straight, and asks Yu Seong if he senses anything. On the other side, Shin Seo-inga, hearing the commotion, asks what's going on with them. Kang Hyun doesn't answer but focuses in one direction and throws a punch there. A hidden person is revealed by Kang Hyun's punch. Yu Seong acknowledges that this person has extremely impressive stealth skills. Normally, he is good at detecting these situations, but today he didn't notice until the person got close. Kang Hyun comments that the absence of murderous intent suggests the intruder was not specifically targeting them. However, he suspects the person's intentions were not benign as there was a foul odor about him. Yu Seong speculates the person might just be a passerby with abilities, and if so, his recent attack would have been unprovoked. The MC maintains his view that sneaking around in the dungeon is clearly a malicious act, and that the person deserved to be hit. He also recalls a meeting with a government official to sign a contract. Taejul had informed him of something important. The MC is asked if he knows about a series of recent dungeon terrorist attacks. Kang Hyun thinks and replies, asking if it involves someone intentionally causing dungeon breaches. Taejul confirms this, mentioning that the government has caught the tail of this force and is now seeking its head. Soon, a large-scale attack will be carried out under government directives, and notably, they need Kang Hyun's assistance. Back in the dungeon, Kang Hyun wakes the captured man. The man is unaware of what happened and why he is tied up. Kang Hyun steps forward to ask who he is and what he is up to. Before the man can respond, he smells a foul odor on himself. Kang Hyun apologizes, explaining that initially he planned to wake him with water, but they didn't have enough drinking water left. Instead, he used urine from a harpy's bladder. The man in rage calls Kang Hyun insane for pouring monster urine on another person. The MC, impatient to listen to his rant, steps closer and demands answers. He asks if the man is the dungeon terrorist. The man's eyes shift briefly, but he regains his composure, laughs loudly, and sarcastically acknowledges being called a terrorist. He mocks them for not understanding the noble purpose behind his actions. Kang Hyun responds that he doesn't care about any so-called noble purposes. He demands the man spill everything he knows in exchange for his release. The man continues to laugh, refusing to confess under the impression that neither torture nor threats would make him betray his grand mission. However, soon after, in his most pitiful state, he begs for mercy, pleading to be allowed to speak. Kang Hyun disagrees that the captive appears desperate enough, deciding to break a few more of his teeth. Taejul rushes over, excitedly asking if the MC has caught the terrorists. When he gets a clear look at the terrorist's face, it frightens him into a frozen state. The captive continues to plead for arrest. Taejul questions why he looks like this, to which Kang Hyun denies responsibility, suggesting maybe the harpies did it. Taejul thanks Kang Hyun for his cooperation and says that the government will handle the rest. He quickly arranges for the terrorists to be taken away. Yu Seong approaches from behind and greets Taejul, calling him a brother from the government. Taejul bows to Yu Seong. Kang Hyun, surprised, asks if they know each other. Taejul explains that Yu Seong was also a recruitment target, but he declined immediately. Yu Seong expresses that working for the government is not appealing. Kang Hyun looks at him, thinking that Yu Seong doesn't miss a beat. The next day, as scheduled, Kang Hyun goes to a government organization to discuss matters. From the information Taejul has gathered, the terrorist's name is Jung Young-shik. His unique ability is invisibility, and he seems to hold a crucial position within his organization. Kang Hyun sits quietly listening, but he already knows this information from Young-shik himself. Taejul adds that thanks to this information, the government has located the group's base. As mentioned earlier, the government plans a large-scale attack scheduled for 2 weeks from today. Kang Hyun is surprised by the 2-week preparation time and questions why they can't attack immediately. Taejul mentions recent news about China having just cleared the world's first-level sea gate a few days ago, assuming Kang Hyun is aware of it. The MC acknowledges he might have seen it on the news. Taejul continues, saying the operation will be swift, as the level of dungeon threats is increasing exponentially. About 1,200 people were deployed for the hunt, with over half having lost their lives. Taejul affirms that since Kang Hyun often enters level D dungeons alone, he must be aware of this. Apparently, just moving up one level means the number of people needed doubles. The MC, who usually operates solo, admits he's not too familiar with these details. Taejul concludes that China's strategy of overwhelming with numbers was their downfall, as the quantity was significant but the average ability was low. Therefore, the South Korean government is selecting an elite team to hunt a level C gate that has appeared in Gangnam's Vanandi Forest. The MC questions Taejul on the necessity of the hunt, pointing out that China has already claimed the first title. He argues that as long as the core is regularly destroyed, it can prevent the dungeon from opening further, making the hunts seem unnecessary. Taejul acknowledges Kang Hyun's accurate analysis of the situation but highlights that they have never successfully hunted a core. Given this, in 2 weeks, the dungeon will open, releasing monsters capable of handling hundreds of power users into a densely populated Seoul. The government is preparing thoroughly for this, believing the potential losses could surpass those from the first dungeon opening due to the dungeon's particular location and level of danger. Kang Hyun understands the urgency and realizes that Taejul, having taken the time to discuss this, is essentially inviting him to join the effort. Taejul confirms this but admits he doesn't fully understand all the regulations. However, one clear rule is that individual participation in this hunt is not allowed. Taejul asks if the MC could form his own guild, knowing Kang Hyun's preference for working solo, but hoping he can make an exception this time for the nation's benefit. The government would handle the bureaucratic aspects and provide substantial support. Kang Hyun agrees, deciding to form his own guild. He sees this as an opportunity the government is presenting directly to him, internally cheering that good living does pay off. After getting all the necessary information, Kang Hyun meets with Yu Seong and Shin Seo-eunga, shares what he has learned, and asks them to help come up with a guild name. Yu Seong is surprised by the immediate need for a name, given there are only 3 members. Kang Hyun explains that due to certain reasons, the issue of the number of members needed to establish a guild has been resolved. He recounts his meeting with the government official from the previous day. Yu Seong's face lights up with excitement at the mention of the level C dungeon, clearly thrilled by the challenge. Shin Seo-eunga remarks that the situation aligns perfectly with Kang Hyun's original plan to form a team, teasing him about possibly manipulating the government from behind the scenes. Kang Hyun honestly denies it, stating that it's not the case. Shin Seo-eunga then asks him to speak freely, reminding him that they are now part of the same guild. Kang Hyun reassures her that there are no hidden agendas and he has shared everything with them. Kang Hyun summarizes that this is a crucial step for the guild's future. They have discussed terms already. Firstly, the 3 of them will avoid unnecessary battles, a point Kang Hyun emphasizes while looking at Yu Seong, who asks why he's being singled out. Kang Hyun stresses that he should understand better than anyone. Secondly, members of the guild will give back what they take, which prompts Yu Seong to ask if that includes kindness, frustration, and annoyance. Kang Hyun confirms, saying he doesn't want to be a despicable person, especially a greedy one. Thirdly, they will strive to become stronger than anyone else. After laying out the principles, Kang Hyun asks if they have any other comments. Yu Seong agrees that everything sounds good, although he's a bit skeptical about the first rule. Shin Seo-eunga also feels satisfied and promises to keep these principles in mind. The conversation then shifts to naming the guild. Kang Hyun asks for their suggestions. Yu Seong playfully proposes Madman Guild, which Kang Hyun immediately rejects for its lack of seriousness. Yu Seong then suggests Lunatic, maintaining the theme of madness. Kang Hyun, exasperated, wonders why everything has to relate to madness. Turning to Shin Seo-eunga, he asks for her input. She jokingly suggests Kang Hyun and his healthy friends, which makes Kang Hyun turn away, muttering under his breath about her unhelpful suggestion. Deciding to take matters into his own hands, Kang Hyun opts to name the guild himself. Yu Seong laughs, reminding him that being older doesn't necessarily mean he'll choose a better name. Meanwhile, Choi Min-jun only just learns about Young-sik's arrest. While Young-sik wasn't a valuable warrior, his looting skill is hard to replace, presenting a significant loss. Choi Min-jun admits that until now, his plan to disrupt the enemy's strategies has failed. He asks his assistant who captured Young-sik, and the investigation reveals that it was Kang Hyun. Choi Min-jun recalls that back in April, Kang Hyun had confronted Keka and caused a mutation at the power training facility. Furthermore, he managed to control a widespread chaos and single-handedly stopped a riot at the Dian's research lab. Choi Min-jun grits his teeth and curses Kang Hyun as a nuisance. Moving past this, he inquires about the progress of the stimulant they are developing. His assistant reports that they need more time due to delays in suppressing the test subjects. Choi Min-jun demands that they expedite the process at any cost, warning his assistant unless she wants to become a test subject herself. The day of the meeting with the government arrives, and various guilds such as the Dangnam Guild, the Awakened Allies Bloc, the Hwoaryeon Guild, the Immortals Guild, and the Guardian Guild, among others, are all present. The only ones arriving late are the 3 members of the baddest gang, led by Kang Hyun. Being late to this first meeting will later be referred to as the first calamity faced by the Korean guilds.